level here. So it's going to be very important to see who is around, fourth, fifth, sixth place and where the cutoff ends up, because they will get to choose their seeding and get that fifth white. And I would say, for me, this entire top row, that's who I would pick to get the 5 whites. I would pick them to finish in some order, first through fifth. Of course, there will be some surprises, but that would be my pick for the top 5.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good pick. I think it is probably going to be Magnus, Giri, Wesley So, MVL, and then it's going to be close between, let's say, Anand Rajabov and Mamedyarov, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also important to point out that in this tournament, Magnus can regain his world #1 spot in the Blitz ranking. He's actually number 4 right now, because Aronian and Fabiano Caruana played extremely well in the Superbet Romania Grandchester event. And of course, Nakamura is still number 1 in the rankings. Magnus would have to gain more than 18 points to overtake Hikaru, Levon, and Fabiano in the rankings. Do you think he will manage today? And what kind of score will he need actually for that?
I think he will do it. And it's easy to get those points, but then he'll have to keep scoring a lot of points to not lose the points, because it's easy to lose them back. I mean, if he wins his first 2 games in this tournament, I think that would get him approximately tied with Nakamura. And, if you say Magnus needs to win 2 Blitz games, you're like, well, that should take him 15 minutes. But then, any game that he loses, he's going to lose 15 to 20 points. A draw is going to cost him. So probably his final score would have to be a little bit better than, let's see, +2. And then out of the remaining 7, he'd have to score at least twice as much. So he'd probably have to score like 7 out of 9.
I think so too. Yeah, I think 7 out of 9 is probably gonna be enough to take that #1 spot. 6.5 will get him close, but I think 7 is a score he needs to overtake Nakamura, which is not easy in this field at all. It means that he, like if he loses 2 games, he would have to win the rest of the games. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. And also, how do you think Ariantari, the last-minute replacement, will hold himself in this field?
Yeah, it's hard to guess. I mean, he's a capable Blitz player, and everyone can have a good day. But in terms of sheer chess knowledge, he's a little bit he's considerably outclassed. The question is, maybe would Anand, Topalov, Wang Hao have any, or Rajabov have any rust that Tari could profit from? It's like, yes, everything there is to know about chess, but I mean, you can't deploy it all within 3 minutes. But we saw Anand play so well at the Superbet a week ago that, if Topalov, Wang Hao, and Rajabov don't show any rust either, it'll be a tough day for Tari. If they do, he could collect a couple scalps and score 50-50 quite reasonably.
Yeah, I do hope that, Ariantari will be able to hold himself well in this field. He's played a couple times already in Norway Chess. I think it's his 3rd showing in this event. But let's actually very quickly have a look at the previous winners.
Yeah. So with 4 titles, not a huge surprise. Magnus winning, and Magnus playing, I mean, maybe every event. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, he's definitely prioritized playing this event. The event has prioritized, him and Norwegian chess. So he's won 4 titles. That means that I've mispredicted the winner of this event at least 5 times.
Right. Yeah, he actually struggled a little bit in the beginning. As we see, Sergei Kiriakin won the first 2 editions, then Veselin Topalov, quite surprisingly, won in 2015. Magnus then won in 2016. But people were talking, is he struggling on his home turf? Because the years thereafter, Levon Aronian won in 2017, and then Fabiano Caruana. But in the last 3 editions, Magnus, showed his dominance. He won in 2019, 2020, and 2021. So I feel like this year is going to be his event again. But yeah, he also had a very dominant showing in Tata Steel Chess, and I don't think he's played ever since that event.
Yeah, and I think also that he and Norway seem to be on a good footing. again, right? Winning on his home turf. It's been announced that he's going to play the Olympiad this year for the first time in several years. So that's inspiring. I hope that Jan Ludvig will hang up his mic and and get out his Norway jersey for that one and put together a real team, because I was really rooting for Norway in the Olympiad a few years ago. I remember I was rooting for Norway and Iran. They were two sort of emerging teams that seemed to have a lot of potential, and then Magnus stopped playing for Norway for a little bit, and the team wasn't the same without him.
Yeah, of course, with Magnus in the team, they make a very, very dangerous team who could potentially fight for one of the top places. They also have Arjan Tari, upcoming star, and Jan Ludvig Hammer. We know he's a former 2700 player, so he's also capable of playing very, very well. So yeah, I'm curious to see how they will do. But of course, we also have the Dutch team who will be ready to do some damage as well.
Yeah. Chad is mentioning that there is a retired player in the tournament as well, another retired player. Topalov never officially retired. He just hasn't been that active. And Rajabov is about as inactive as is sort of semi-typical for him. Who knows if he's retired or not. But Wang Hao did officially retire from chess, saying mainly that the stress of playing in tournaments was bad for his health, and it reached a point where he wasn't enjoying it. And personally, I'm not surprised to see him play again, because I think once you retire, that on its own removes a lot of the stress, and then you may just think that playing chess sounds like fun.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of players have retired at some point in their life, and then they come back, or they retire again and then come back. So I think it's just chess players can never retire. I mean, we all know that.
All right. Right before the games get started, we want to remind everybody about the voting on chess.com/events. This allows you to vote on the results of each of the games. And if you pick the right results, then you can win not only free diamond memberships, but even cash. There's typically a $600 cash pool lately per tournament for your predictions over the course of the whole week. So we're going to have 10 days of Norway Chess, and you can make those predictions up till move 10. Now, today it's Blitz, so you better pick pretty fast. In the classical tournaments, sometimes you can wait and see, who's playing the Catalan and who's playing the London system, and then then guess whether it's going to be a win or a draw based on that. But today you're going to need to be pretty quick with that voting if you want to be part of that prize.
Indeed. But yeah, on the flip side, it is a little bit more random. Someone could be up a piece, but then suddenly, just lose on time.
Yeah.
It's all in the game in Blitz. But yeah, go to go.chess.com/Norway Chess for more information about this event. And yeah, I think the players should be getting ready any second now. It is 6 p.m. in Norway. So I mean, it always, before the first round, there's always, a little speech before the game starts. So it always starts a couple minutes later.
Yeah. Chad is questioning my comments about Rajabov. They think that I don't know what's going on in the chess world, but really, I was just being humorous about the fact that Rajabov rarely plays, right? I know he's in the candidates, but he rarely plays. He qualified for the previous candidates, sort of by surprise, some would say. He wasn't very active that year either, right? He played maybe one event and qualified for it, and then he withdrew from it and was given a spot in this one because of the controversy around his withdrawal there. Trust me, I know some things about Rajabov. I'm not completely out of touch, but let me tell you this about Rajabov. Rajabov currently has a 20-game drawing streak in classical chess. So even when he shows up to play a classical game of chess, part of my humor was that, you could argue that he's retired even when he's at the board playing, because he's making a 14-move draw and then going off to do something else. So the last time he had a decisive result in a classical chess game was 2019, I think, Benjamin.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess also the pandemic played a role in that. And yeah, I think he drew all of his games in the Superbet Romania tournament last year. And then I guess he also played another tournament in which he drew all of his games.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one game off the sort of modern day record here. I've got him up on stream. And is Magnus Carlsen going to play his own King's Indian against him? No, it's a Grunfeld. But Magnus Carlsen currently holds the record, actually, which is surprising, I think, to some, because we think of him as being like a very, very fighting chess player, right?
Right.
But Magnus has played 21 draws in a row at some point, and Rajabov is on 20 right now. So that's one of the records we can watch for in the first round tomorrow of the Classical. But for now, we've got some Blitz and we've got a full central explosion here. Do you know or play either side of this line of the Grunfeld here?
Yes, I played the Grunfeld a lot growing up, and Bishop G5 is one of the main moves. The two main moves back then were always Bishop G7 and Knight E4, but C5 has come into popularity later. We see Rajabov taking on F6 and taking on D5. Queen B6 by Magnus. I think this line was introduced by Daniil Dubov in like 2017. I remember him playing some games. So
Okay.
Black sacrifices a pawn. He also has the double pawns on the king side, but he does get good compensation.
Yeah. Yeah, I had not seen this C5 move before. I randomly played the Grunfeld once in a classical game, and I ran into Bishop G5. But I came up with the move Knight E4 over the board. It looked good to me. C5 can be played in almost any position, I guess, in the Grunfeld, but here it like slightly surprises me, the sacrifice. But yeah, we'll see. The Queen B6 hitting B2. White leaves it hanging. If Queen B2, what does White do? Knight B5?
I guess something along the lines of Knight B5. But yeah, we see Magnus staying on D4, Bishop B5 check. Bishop D7 by Magnus. And I guess now Queen takes D4 looks very logical for White because the tactics work out. In case Black takes on B5, we take on B6 first, and then recapture the bishop on B5.
Right. And so we won't lose a piece here. And if Magnus just trades on D4, then White will have 2 extra pawns in the endgame, although doubled isolated.
Right. Yeah. So I do expect Magnus to trade on D4, which is what we see here. Rajabov has to recapture. And I don't know, White's extra pawn is not the prettiest, right? He has these double isolated pawns in the center. But, I mean, Black does have the 2 bishops, but is it really enough here?
I expect Bishop B4 to try and force the tension around the bishop trade. Although then I guess White could just play Bishop C4, right? That's what you do in some lines in the pawn of attack and those kind of structures. Or in the center counter when Black doesn't recapture on D5, sometimes you play the check and then bring the bishop back to C4. And here after A6, same thing. He doesn't trade and bring out the black pieces. He retreats and overprotects the D5 pawn. And it looks like Black's got a lot of work to do to try and get the pawn back. Bishop C8
Bishop
from
C8
Magnus.
by Magnus. That's very, very surprising. So after Knight F3, he goes Knight to D7. But now after castles, Rook F1 is going to come very quickly from Rajabov. So I think he has to move the bishop on F8, so he frees up the F8 square for his king.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to get his king out of the center in time here, is he?
No, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, he might have some compensation later on, but I feel like Rajabov also has the initiative here.
Yeah, it looks like his opening is busted. If the bishop goes to G7, then I think White can even, play Rook E1 check and D6 and go to E7. So Magnus brings the knight to B6, king to D8, and he's going to use this bishop to cover the E7 and C7 weaknesses. Those are the main possible penetration points on the C and E files. So his bishop's going to try and hold White off, and White's maybe going to have knight E4.
Right, so I would think Bishop B3 here, and then maybe D6 later on, getting the pawn on F7. But yeah, there's also a knight E4, and I can, if Black goes F5, there's knight EG5 after that. So it's looking really unpleasant for Magnus, and also he's down half a minute on the clock.
Yeah, and he was down a full minute until Raja started thinking about this moment here. So wonder if Raja's looking at something more interesting than Bishop B3. Like, what other move would White be considering now?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think bishop b3 here.
I can't really think of anything else I would play. I mean, okay, now some moves came in a clump. Maybe there was a hiccup in the relay. So knight d2, knight c8. Wow, he won't even put his bishop on d6. He is playing this ultra fancy.
Yeah, no, I
and
agree.
He gives up a third. Oh no, that's only the second pawn. He was only at one pawn this whole time. I miscounted.
I'm a bit surprised by h3 by Rajabov. Like, why didn't he not go back to e4? Because now after knight g4, Magnus has the opportunity to get back the pawn on d4, and he does take it. Rook 81. And
now he needs like knight e6, but I don't see how it can get there.
Yeah, so Magnus trades everything, goes h5, opening up the rook. And of course, Rajabov is still better, but it's not going to be easy to win this endgame because black has a nice blockade going on.
Yeah. If white could play c4 to c3 to c5, then white would be winning. But as long as black can hold the c5 square, black should be okay.
Right. So we see c4 here by Rajabov, rook to c8 and rook d4. Yeah, I don't really see white overcoming that c5 square, and I don't really see what white could, what else white could do. But maybe just slowly improve the position, g3, king g2, and then just see what happens.
I'll say this: I've seen Magnus end up winning a lot of endgames like this. Where once he survives the worst.
Right. So we see bishop a4 check, king d8. Wow, he could make the draw here.
He refused to move b5, right? Which would have been sort of simplifying.
Right, but then the pawn on b5 can be a weakness later on, and he feels that bishop b3 is probably forced here because you have to defend the pawn on c4.
Yeah. I expect Rajabov to repeat.
Right. Okay, so let's have a look. So king d7. Okay, he goes g3. He plays on.
Wow. All right, look at the fight from Raja.
Yeah. Okay, rook to e8. Okay, I guess
rook h1.
Trade here. Look, or
I would take that.
Is up a little bit of time on the clock.
The rook can't leave the c5 square at the moment. It's interesting that Magnus hasn't spent a move on b6, right? There's been like a slow phase where he had a lot of tempi and he could have done it for a long time. Now, he always has to watch out for c5, rook a4, right?
Okay, so his rook comes to h8. He's ready to. Okay, and Raja takes a pawn with c5
and Raja
rook
tries
a4. I don't know how I feel about that. Felt very necessary to just give the pawn. But
yeah, I was thinking that was something that might happen, once his rook was on h2 and the white king on e3 or something. But Raja went for it right away. Don't worry about the clocks, folks. We don't know for sure if somebody's flagged until the broadcast catches up. We've got some results coming in. Wang Hao has won his first game out of retirement against Wesley So. And Mamad Yarov has beaten MVL.
What a way to unretire for Wang Hao. Yeah, once again, we talked about this earlier. Chess players, they never really fully retire. And this game between Magnus and Rajabov is still... Wait, are the moves coming through?
I don't know. So... Also, I mean, I'm pulling up this position between Giri and Topalov, and it looks like in the position on the board, Giri can play rook h7 and win the game. And there it comes in. It was showing him as flagged, but there was one last move in the game, which is rook h7. The king's completely trapped, and after the queen sacrifices itself, white can even capture the rook on b3 to leave black with nothing. So that was resignation there. Let's see if we've got moves coming again. Between Raja and Magnus, it looks equal-ish.
Yeah, so this endgame should be a draw, but of course, Rajabov can still push for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, he's up the pawn
here. But yeah, I do expect Magnus to hold here. He moves the knight back to c8. Raja slides the king over.
You know, it would have been a bad way to try and save this game, Benjamin, would have been knight b5 check to get rid of the last pawn. Pawn takes, rook takes, bishop a4.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay. Instead, he brings the knight to help blockade the a5 square. That's fairly logical. And that's the end of that game.
Yeah. So yeah, we see a draw in the game between Timur Rajabov and Magnus Carlsen. Anish Giri wins his first game against Veselin Topalov. Wang Hao beats Wesley So. Anand beats Ariantari, and Momicharov beats MVL.
Yeah. All right. Let us use the 5-minute break that has been supposedly promised to the players to see what Wang Hao's first game back looked like.
All right.
Oh, Queen's Gambit accepted. If you watch some of the Super Bet, folks, you'll know that Wesley So and MVL are playing the Queen's Gambit accepted and getting a lot of draws with it.
Indeed, yeah, a lot of players play it these days. I think the Queen's Gambit accepted used to be a sharp opening, but these days it's just used as a way to try to trade off everything pretty much. But Wang Hao, he just crashed right through.
This is a sharp line Wesley is playing. He's checking if Wang Hao's been studying openings.
Yeah, so this line, it was played in the game between Levon Aronian and Hikaru Nakamura in the FIDE Grand Prix. Once again, knight c7 does not only win the queen, but it's checkmate. And if black ever goes knight takes d5, we just go queen takes d5, and we always protect that rook on a8 that we're going to capture later on.
Wow. Right. So like if pawn takes knight here, he's got rook a8 and the queen defends it through the x-ray. Wow. Check, blocks, takes, queen b2. I suppose black could have just castled and accepted that they were down a pawn or two. But Wesley goes fishing for the counterattack here.
Yeah, queen a3, a really nice move by Wang Hao, making sure that black, like he's offering the queen trade, and Wesley refuses it, but now black cannot castle.
Yeah. Something's going crazy with the stream, though.
Yeah.
I mean, according to the chat.
Yeah.
According to chat, the stream is down.
Right.
I see us on stream. What is chat doing? They're messing with us. We're back and saved. I don't know, chat. Were we really down, or were you just messing with us?
No, it did look like there was a bit of a glitch there, but we are back.
Okay.
All right, so let's see.
Yeah. Unfortunately, chess.com's production team couldn't get a hold of Liam MC. They tried to hire him. They tried desperately, but they couldn't get a hold of him. So you guys are stuck with us for now. But Liam MC, if you can still hear us, they're looking for you, man. So if you comment, if you get in touch with chess.com, they'll replace us with you in a heartbeat.
Exactly, yeah.
Non, pas maintenant, je travaille maintenant. Il faut aller à ta maman, ok? Elle est sortie avec Lily sans toi?
All right, so let's see. The next round should be starting pretty soon. I think at least they were actually scheduled to start a minute ago, but maybe they're sort of coming back from their very ambitious tight schedule.
Yeah. Okay. Well, right. The schedule says that round 2 should be now. So let's see. Let's see if the round 2 games are set up. I don't see the board set up yet. So I'll look at a few more moves of Wang Hao's game. You guys saw a Green Planet video. Okay. And now you've got video with no audio. Yikes.
But there's no audio.
Oh.
Ok.
Tu veux prendre les pions, Lupin, et les remettre ici? Les pions sont dans le bol en bois. This game doesn't look obvious, this Wang Hao versus Wesley So game, despite him hitting him with that crazy knight takes b5. It looks like they still have like a pretty crazy game where neither player can castle their king, which means, to me, anything could happen. Is it obvious to you that White's winning, or?
No, not at all. But I guess Black's king is just really stuck in the center and is lacking any sort of protection. But I really like how Wang Hao continued from here. He played the move rook to d1, bring the rook into the game. a5 by Wesley just seems way too slow. And now Wang Hao went for the attack with queen to d6, sacrificing the pawn on c3, which Wesley took. But after king f2, look at the white king is sitting pretty safe over there, and he's ready to bring all the pieces into the game. Queen b4, queen c6, king e7, queen c7.
Now Black wants to trade queens.
Right, yeah. But rook d6 by Wang Hao, and he's ready to bring the other rook into the game, and you simply cannot hide from the white attack. Oh, and actually the next round should be starting very...
I imagine the next round has started, and I suspect there's a problem with events or something. There they go. Okay, I'm finding the games now. So we're going to leave this one here, and we're going to go to round 2. So we've got, let's see, Magnus and MVL, or Wesley versus Anand, or Rajabov versus Giri, and Topalov versus Wang Hao.
Right, let's watch. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. VL has enough compensation here.
Wow, that is really weird. Normally it would be white who would sack something to get a pawn to d6.
Right, yeah.
And also normally when your opponent gets a pawn to d6, you try to capture it. Like you try to attack it with more pieces than the bishop, but he just tries to play around the whole thing.
So we see queen a5 check by MVL, which does not seem easy to deal with. You can go bishop d2, but then perhaps MVL plays a move like queen to c5. And now the pawn on b2 is under attack, the pawn on c4 is under attack, and the pawn on d6. So Magnus could also play queen Now, how do you stop knight g5? I don't see it.
That's why he never played knight f4, huh?
Yeah, so taking with the rook was apparently a huge mistake by MVL. He had to take with the queen, bring that queen closer to the king side. But after rook takes c4, queen h6, I really don't see how knight g5 can be stopped. He goes rook e5, but I guess he has to sack the rook now. Which is what he does on rook e8. Okay, so queen e2 by Magnus. So you don't want to take on e2 because I feel like that just leads to a lost endgame. So you go c5 and now f3 by Magnus. He's preparing the move e4.
Yeah. He's going to want to try and keep this bishop under control. Okay, he just goes for king f2, covering these. And, well, I think all that's missing from winning this game now is a4, a5.
Right, so yeah, he could consider that in this position. It looks pretty good for Magnus. I don't really see how MVL can cook up some counterplay here. So let's see how the world champion will try to convert here.
Like the d pawn's a little bit sensitive, so he might want to play rook d1 to overprotect the d file first. But basically, he'll just need to open a file at some point, one full file.
Yeah, he needs some sort of counterplay. But yeah, when files open up, that maybe gives Magnus the opportunity to trade off some pieces. So let's see. Do we have more moves? Yeah,
not on my screen. On my screen, it's just ticking.
Right. Okay, so now
there came 10 moves in a row.
Through.
His first move was a4, and a5. Okay. Oh, and Vishy pushes past, trying to leave files closed no matter what. Threatens rook d5 to pick up d6, e4 to prevent that. All the rooks in the middle. So far, Vishy has prevented Magnus from opening a file, and so it's not yet clear.
Right. Yeah. Indeed. So we see Magnus trying to open up here with the move g4. This should work out in Magnus's favor because Maxime cannot really take. Like if you take on g4, Magnus is just going to take with the queen. He's happy to give back one pawn, but to open up some files and trade off a pair of like the queens and the rooks. So let's see how MVL will try to complicate here.
Wow. And it's coming like 10 moves at a time. But apparently what he played was g5 in response. Trade? No, doesn't trade. Just backs up. Okay. Full pawn tension. Trade here. f4. Oh, if rook g6, f5 probably would end things. f5 anyway, winning back the pawn and going after the rook trade. If rook g5, rook h8.
Yeah, rook h8. But you always got to be careful of that queen a2 check. And we see it here in the position, but queen e2 has everything covered. MVL trades on e2 and takes on h1, but this has got to be a winning endgame for Magnus. He should be able to go after the pawn on a7, and that should be game.
Oh, look at that king e3 move. If bishop f5, I think he just goes rook a8 to a7, huh? Disregard everything except the a pawn.
Yeah, and that is going to cause black the bishop in the end. So rook c8, b4 by MVL trying to create a pass pawn, but Magnus has it all covered with this move king to d2, stopping the pawn just in time.
Check, forcing him back. Rook e7, taking the bishop, and resigns.
Yeah, so Magnus wins his second game. He moves to 1.5 out of 2. In the meantime, Wesley So and Vishy Anand drew their game, and Aryan Tari beats Shakhyar Mamedyarov. Big upset there. Veselin Topalov beats Wang Hao, and Timur Rajabov beats Anish Giri. He moves to 1.5 out of 2 as well. So is there still a player on 2 out of 2? I don't think so. No, I don't think there's nobody on 2 points.
Already no.
So I think it's Magnus, Anand, Rajabov on 1.5. Those are the leaders.
That seems right. That seems right. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, MVL, he is on 0 out of 2. He will have to catch up from that. As we said before, you don't want to finish on the bottom half of the field, because then you will have one more black game in the classical tournament.
Yeah, and that'll keep you motivated even if you're not winning the event. You just have to remember the goal is 5th place, not 1st place, and pick yourself up and keep going for it. So you got the standings exactly right. Magnus, Tamor, and Vishy with 1.5. Not many draws so far. I think
indeed, and
maybe 2 draws so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wesley versus Anand in the 2nd round.
Indeed, and on 50%, we see Shahar Mamedyarov, Anish Giri, Topalov, Wang Hao, and Aryan Tari. It's great for him that he's holding himself very well in this field.
Yeah, I'm having a quick look at Tari's first win of the day here.
The chatter is saying that Wang Hao has 2, but he lost the 2nd round to Vesel and Topalov, so he has 1 point.
Yeah.
All right.
So Mamedyarov played this Philidor position, taking a big space disadvantage. Oh, and Tari, in response to h5, he didn't worry about, black playing h4, knight h5, or anything like that. He just tried to crack Mamedyarov immediately for making that weakness. Brings the bishop to g5. If f takes e4, then probably the knight is lost to knight d5.
Indeed, you'll love to see Aryan Tari just going all out here to beat Shakir. He takes on f6.
Nice. And then just move the knight, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and this looks great for white, especially in the Blitz game.
Oof, and Mamedyarov willingly trades off the 2nd defender of the king, right? The knight's been removed by Tari, but now under threat of knight d5 and queen h5, he just says, well, let me give him a doubled pawn. He trades off himself, brings the rook to cover the weaknesses on f5 and h5. Knight h5 still, nightmare for black. I would maybe want to play
this just looks super tough to defend. Yeah, Tari played great this game.
Oh, he's playing fantastic. If black takes, then he can play g4 to try and take the pawn on f7 behind him, or bishop e4, depending which way black takes. Oh, yeah. Just like this.
Yeah. Indeed. So Aryan Tari crashing through in this game. f6 by... and rook a4. Oh, that's such a nice move. I did not see that one coming at all.
Yeah. Me neither, but the attacker to defender count is getting absolutely out of control. Rook h4.
That's brutal. Oh my God. And yeah, if you go bishop takes f5, it's lost. Isn't knight takes f6 just pretty much checkmate, followed by queen h6?
Yeah,
you see that happening here.
That's what happened. He went to g5 first and just removed the last defender on f5. And that was that. Mamedyarov resigns in view of a pretty simple variation here, folks, which is takes, queen takes, rook h7. And you can't keep the queen protected.
Yep. So great win for Aryan Tari. I expect round 3 to be starting any second now. So let's see if we have any moves yet.
Let's try and go to those games. So we'll go round 3. We can at least see the matchups here. Tari is going to have black against MVL, who started on 0-2.
Yeah, that's a must-win game for MVL. He has to get some points on the board.
That's a test for Tari because the guy's going to be coming for you. But if you can understand, normally if you can understand the situation, see MVL having the bad start and the desperation, you might be able to use it against him as Tari. And
yeah, for sure. So let's see how Aryan will try to do that. We also have Anish Giri against Magnus Carlsen. That's also going to be a very exciting matchup. Mamedyarov against Wesley So. And this is really a classic. Vishy Anand against Vesel and Topalov. They played in the World Chess Championship match in 2010. Anand won that match in the very last game when Topalov overpushed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like Topalov was trying to avoid the rapid tiebreak, which was in the rules at that time as well. And he pushed really hard to try to win a game. I studied that game quite a lot. Anand had an isolated pawn and basically never defended it. He just put his rooks on the open files next to the isolated pawn that Topalov was trying to win and stayed active, and there was never a great time to take the pawn. That was a great game.
Yeah, and we see here a Rouser Sicilian, and I just can't think anything else but to think that this is a typical Vishy position. He often knows so well how to play these Sicilians.
Yeah, let's see. The move order was a classical Rouser. Yeah.
Right, so we see here a pawn sacrifice by Vishy. Do you think... Okay, so we see Anand going rook to g1 first. So let's see what Topalov will do here. I think if black castles now Vishy will take on d6. So we see Topalov going bishop c6, and he's saying like, okay, take my pawn, I don't mind. He feels like after takes and rook c8, followed by king d7, black has enough compensation.
He's even trying to offer like a pawn with the, I mean, a tempo with the pawn to sweeten the deal, right? He's like, I'll put the bishop where it's hanging. Please take my pawn. But what he really wants to do is lodge his knight on f4 and, have the h pawn be so weak that you almost just want to give it back. And we are going to see that because Anand has now taken.
Yeah, so Anand has captured a pawn on the rook c8. He played the move a4. I guess king e7 is forced here because after b4, we might have bishop takes a6 immediately. So king e7 on the board, hitting the rook. So I guess the rook slides back to... Okay, d4.
d4 to stop the b4 move.
Right.
How much more can you get harassed, right? I mean, there's a variation to calculate quickly in Blitz here. Rook d4, e5, rook b4, a5.
Yeah. So maybe after e5, Anand can also throw in the move knight d5 check or just move the rook back. But we see Topalov going for knight f4.
Yeah.
He's going for his own counterplay on the king side. So now Anand could take on b5, which is what he does. And the problem is if you take with the bishop now and then with the knight, there was knight e2 at the end. So he goes rook to d2, covering the h2 pawn and that e2 square.
And that fork. Yeah, folks, look what Benjamin's warning us about is takes, knight e2. Another thing to worry about. So back to the game position. He's put the rook on d2 to cover this. b4 comes in, sends the knight back, develops the bishop. I think black's got very decent compensation here. Very decent.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Yeah, it's still a pawn, and the pawn on b4 is also weak. But I don't like his last move, knight at g6, because now rook g5 looks like a great move from Vishy. He's ready to go rook to c5, putting a bit of pressure on that bishop. After rook c5, now knight takes b4 is a threat because the rook on b6 would be overworked.
Yeah. He's sort of moving the conversation over to the queen side, which is where white is truly better. And the black king flees to f6. Knight b4 is not played. Some knight b4, bishop e4 variation must not have been to white's taste. Previously, with the king on e7, it wouldn't have worked because of rook c7 check at the end would have been good for white. But now he has to wait.
So knight e5 by Topalov. I was expecting here the f4 push to play a little bit more actively, but rook f2 was played, rook h2. And bishop e2, it's still looking good for Anand, but he's pushing his pieces back a little bit. But he's also up a minute on the clock. Rook h4 by Veselin.
He's playing it carefully. If he plays f4 at the wrong time, he has to keep this defended on e4.
Indeed. And if Veselin can establish a blockade, maybe he does have enough compensation.
Yeah, now seems to be the moment where you would have to play f4 to stop rook f4, but Anand does not. What's he going to play? I mean, if he were planning king e3, he wouldn't have gone to b2, right? He would have gone to c1 directly.
Right. So we see king b2, rook f4, bishop takes e4 is a threat now, and it doesn't seem easy to deal with. Rook f1, now rook h4 is a move. And how do you get out of the repetition?
Yeah. Well, I think the way you get out of it is you face Topalov, who doesn't even want a repetition.
Right, yeah.
Topalov is definitely one of the most optimistic players out there, right?
Yeah, especially back in the day. I don't know how he is these days, but he goes for the move g5. It also makes sense. Maybe he wants to go g4 in some positions. And it doesn't seem easy here for Vishy to make a move. I mean, all of his pieces seem kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm. He could play knight c1 to d3.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
yeah, I like that maneuver because the knight is very active on e5.
Or bring the king into the center.
Right, so king c1, d2 to e3. I guess black should be able to do something in the meantime, maybe with a move g4. Mm-hmm. Let's see, Vishy hasn't moved yet, right?
Yeah, I don't see him having moved. I can refresh the board, but he just had a time advantage. And okay, g4 has happened. So he played rook g2. Takes. And they're trading things, and white still has the extra pawn for now. And a rook trade isn't going to help black. Here comes the h pawn.
Yeah, so rook f2 by Topalov activating the rook. I feel like black is fairly active, but b4 is always weak, and he's not really getting anything going in the center. g5 check, maybe king f5 and king f4.
Yeah, that king looks pretty good there.
Or king f4. Huh. So we see. Wait, oh, g6 by Anand. He just sacrifices the rook. What a move. Because if you take the rook, there's g7, you cannot stop the pawn.
Wow. Anand was more alert at this particular moment.
What a great find by Anand. Yeah, there's just no move here for Topalov. You probably have to give up the knight, but that's just completely lost. Yeah, if you take the rook on g3, there's g7, and you don't have rook f8 because that pawn covers that square.
This could be the end for Topalov, because even if he doesn't take the rook, yeah, he just resigned. There's not any way to combat that pawn. Wow. King f4 looks plausible, but that was kind of the decisive moment here, perhaps.
Yeah, an unfortunate blunder for Topalov. Perhaps had he played a move like bishop e4 first, followed by king f4, he's covering that g6 square, and he's still very much in the game.
Yeah, bishop e4. I mean, it felt like he was still in the game. Bishop e4 is very, very nice. You're stopping white from bringing these pieces to d3, and you're keeping an eye on g6 and h7 on those pawns. And yeah, I mean, I think Topalov was thinking too optimistically. I think he was thinking that he was going to win the position somehow because he's active. He likes being active.
Yeah, or he just assumed that white had to move the rook. Vishy found this amazing g6 move, and the game was just over.
Ooh, let's go Wang Hao. Jiayo. Get him.
Oh, Wang Hao is crushing him. Yeah, he's going to win another game. Rook c8, and black just losing a rook here.
If he didn't have the b7 pawn, he'd have a nice positional advantage for white, right? He could really slowly try to win those pawns on d5 and f5. But instead, it is over.
Yeah, and amazing.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say an amazing win for Wang Hao, and he moves to 2 out of 3.
Yeah. You know who else had an amazing win this round?
Arian Tari once again.
Arian Tari is on a plus score in the Field of Giants.
The Norwegian star, he's holding himself amazingly well in this field. Yeah, he beat MVL with the black piece, and now MVL is down to 0 out of 3.
Ow. Oh, man.
That is a rough start for the French world champion. But I think the players are going to be taking a short break. In Norway, there's a break after every 3 rounds. So we will do the same. But don't go anywhere, you guys. We will be right back with more action from the Norway Chess Blitz tournament. We'll see you guys after the break.
And welcome back, everybody, to Norway Chess 2022. Grandmaster Benjamin Bach and International Master David Pruess here to watch these exciting Blitz games with you. And one of the big stories so far, Benjamin, is Arian Tari. You asked me how he'd do. Did you have some sense that that he was this good at Blitz?
No, to be honest, not really. I didn't expect him to be doing so well. He is on 2 out of 3. That's +1. So perhaps he can get into the top 5 to get himself an extra white game going into the classical tournament. But yeah, it's great to see him playing like this. And in the next round, he's paired up with the black pieces against none other than Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be the game that we'll probably keep our eyes on this round in honor of Norway, right? It's Norway Chess. This is the Norwegian versus Norwegian matchup. So I think we'll have our eyes on this. Tari and Carlsen are half a point out of first place right now. Behind who? Vishy Anand.
The legend.
The legend, yeah.
Absolute legend.
I noticed last round people were complaining that we were watching Anand's game. They said, why are you watching the game of, what was it, 2 semi-retired seniors or something like that? But I mean, whichever game we watch, someone would be complaining because that's how it goes. But we were actually, watching the game of the player in first place in a professional chess tournament. So pretty logical to watch their game. But we're going to perhaps favor Norway versus Norway for one round and then get back to Anand next round if he continues to lead the tournament. We had another question about why Arian Tari is in the tournament, because he was a last-minute replacement for Richard Rapport. Do you know anything about the story behind that?
Yeah, so what I kind of heard about Richard is he had been complaining a little bit about financial support in some interviews. He recently found a sponsor, so perhaps he felt less of the need to play, every tournament he got invited to. And I guess he's just focusing on the candidates. It does, I don't know, like it feels a little bit strange to cancel last minute because he knew ahead that Norway Chess was right before the candidates. But yeah, it does give a great opportunity to Arian.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, when I'd seen the original lineup, I was asking myself, where is the second Norwegian player? Because I think that one of the things that Norway Chess should do is always have a second Norwegian player, give an opportunity to somebody. And, if Jan Ludvig Hammer is happier doing commentary, if Arian Tari has already played 3 or 4 times, then there's Johann Sebastian Christensen, right? I mean, he would not be at the 2750 level, but why not give a local player an opportunity, right? To get that extra practice.
Yeah, I feel like they should give an opportunity to one of the Norwegians. So I think it's very logical that they invited Arian. He's a number 2 in Norway. He's still very young, so he can definitely still make a lot of progress. And of course, what better learning opportunity than playing against the very best in the world?
Yeah. In the Super Bet tournament, we got to see Diak have his first sort of like big super tournament, and that was great to see. It was a fantastic opportunity for him. And so I personally believe that these tournaments should always have some room for supporting the local community as well as just having the highest average rating possible. There should be the other consideration. And also it often spices things up a bit. So here we've got Tari playing black. Magnus is playing a slightly provocative move order that ends up being a London system.
Yeah, so I feel like Arian should be doing completely fine here. He trades on d2. Magnus is probably going to take with the queen, I'd imagine. And then after e6, I don't see any problems for black whatsoever.
Yeah, just nothing. I mean, black has played bishop f5 for free without anything happening on c5 or d5 while they did it. Magnus basically, by putting the bishop on g5 first, said, okay, you get this knight e4 move for free. Is it good or is it bad? In the Petrov, white tries to prove that knight e4 is slightly bad. But here, I mean, with just knight d2 and trading it, I mean, there was nothing bad about it. And I would already slightly prefer black, I want to say, like by a few hundredths of a pawn.
Black has a tiny bit more space because he has the pawn on c5 and white has the pawn on c3. We see Magnus here going bishop b5 to try to complicate the game a little bit, but I wonder what he is planning to do after queen to b6, but Aryan
Yeah.
just goes bishop e7. But now
I would have welcomed this trade. I would have said, please give me your light squared bishop. Give me a tempo for my queen. Give me everything I want, Magnus. But no.
Yeah, so after bishop e7, pawn takes c5, now there might be some small problems for Aryan. He probably has to recapture the pawn, and now there comes knight d4. So white is hitting the knight on c6 and the bishop on f5. So Aryan sees himself forced to give up the bishop for the knight on d4. But now, after pretty much either capture, Magnus should be a tiny bit better.
Yeah. Even queen d4 could be played if you wanted to, for some reason. If you wanted to keep Tari, if you wanted to keep Tari out of like a structure that he's as familiar with.
So Magnus trades on c6 first. I guess now he wants to take with the c pawn because the c6 pawn is backwards. He can go rook to c1, put a lot of pressure there. Eventually, castles, go say rook c5, rook to c1, queen c3, and that pawn might easily just drop off because I don't see how black can bring in enough defenders.
Yeah, that pawn's definitely going to come under some pressure here. I'm showing Magnus is thinking quite a while on this recapture.
Yeah, I wonder what he's thinking about. Maybe the moves are not coming through, but c takes d4 looks like a very natural follow-up after bishop takes c6.
Yeah. Well, folks, yes, the Norway Chess tournament has a classical time control, but it actually has much more than that. It's got a Blitz tournament today. This is 3+2 all day long today. It also is going to have rapid games because any classical game that is drawn, they force the players to just keep playing a second game. So you will be getting plenty of excitement in this tournament. And here come the moves. C takes d4 as Benjamin expected. And bishop, Tari doesn't take the chance to castle, Benjamin. I don't know. This may cost him. Okay, they each tuck their kings in the same way. And it's back to sieging the c pawn. Okay.
Yeah, so Magnus drops his bishop back to g3. But yeah, as you were saying, they will first play a classical game. In case that ends in a draw, they then will play an Armageddon. And I believe if you win the classical game, you get 3 points. If you draw in the classical, you get 1 point each. And then if you win the Armageddon, you get an additional half a point. So it's a bit confusing, right? Because you can get
point, I think. So basically, the winner of the Armageddon game gets 2 out of 3 possible points for the round. So it becomes a 0, 1, 2, 3 scoring system.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense because last year I believe you got half a point, and that was very. Wait, isn't this a blunder by Aryan? Rook a5, Queen c4, Queen d2. That's just game over.
He's been bullied.
That's a very standard blunder. That's a bit disappointing.
I mean, it certainly makes sense that you want to do it. Like if you get this bishop to b5, you're very comfortable.
Right, yeah. But yeah, Queen c4, Queen d2. And Aryan might as well just resign here because I don't see a way to defend.
I mean, I think he's trapped his queen now as well, right? So
the queen is also trapped, yeah.
It's not getting better. That's the end of that one. We're going to have a chance to catch the leader of the tournament, Vishy Anand, playing a knight endgame with Raj above. And it looks about equal.
Yeah, this one should be a draw. Vishy is way up on the clock, though.
Knight g4.
But yeah, right. All right, yeah. So we see knight g4 by Vishy, but yeah, I guess after king g3, bring the king up. Eventually, the d pawn for the a pawn will be traded, I'd imagine. King f3 is now a pretty standard draw, I think.
Dead draw. Dead draw. We'll go look elsewhere for our entertainment. How's MVL doing?
Right, so MVL against Wesley. Oh, Wesley has a very nice advantage. He has the 2 bishops. He also has an extra pawn. And look at that majority on the king side. He can simply start pushing those pawns forward, and maybe he can even start creating some sort of attack towards the black king.
I think bishop b6 was a nice move, last move for MVL. I mean for Wesley. Well, he's going to get forced into it. He's going to get forced into it by knight c2. So no.
What? Chosen by Wesley. He also has a huge time advantage.
Is there a piece covering the b6 square that I don't see, Benjamin?
No. So 96 played by MVL. It's not over though, because bishop c4, that's a nice move. B6. Maybe just king f2, bring the king into the game. But
Sure. Support this square. F4 is the weakest square for white, the one you have to watch out for.
Right. And 3 seconds for MVL. So he made his last move with only 1 second on the clock. Let's see how Wesley will continue here. Looks great for him. King f2 play, but wait, now knight c5, king f3, knight d4. Wait, how do you defend the pawn? Because king f3, knight d4, king e3, knight c2 back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not that easy anymore.
Right, and e4 is hanging, so it's not like you can play a move like bishop c3 to stop knight d4. There's a primary threat. Knight d4 is the secondary threat.
Yeah, you're simply going to lose that pawn because king e2, there's just knight d4. Or actually, you can capture on e4. So we see knight d4, king e3, knight c2. Now, yeah, there's no easy way to get out of it. And maybe MVL will get away with a draw. King d1. Okay, you got to take the pawn now. Or you take on b3 as well.
Yeah, you could take b3 or e4.
B5.
Plays b5. Looks okay too, I suppose.
Takes
now I'm sure he'll take on b3 and defend the a pawn, right?
Oh, but king c2 and the knight is kind of... Wait, the knights are stuck defending each other.
They are stuck. And knight f6 check leaves the knights alone without any help from their bishop.
Indeed, and the problem for black is he goes knight at d7, e5, knight c5, but it feels like the pawns on the queen side are kind of blocked. In f5, here comes white majority, e5, e6, taken bishop c5. That's game over, right?
Yeah, that's a free piece, and it's hard to stop f8 equals queen here. If king g7, bishop h6, you don't take the knight and give them time to even play knight
that's
d7.
even better, yeah. Yeah, so Wesley wins against MVL, and this MVL is 0 out of 4. I mean, he might as well start checking the Grunfeld and the Neidorf already because he will be playing an extra black game.
Oh, it's sad. That is sad, but you are right.
Yeah.
Now, is there a result yet here on the Giri versus Wang Hao game? Round 5 pairings have just already popped up for me, but as far as I can tell, there's still a game going here in round 4.
Yeah, so Giri is up a pawn. Can he squeeze out a win here? Rook b4, maybe g4 now, although black is h5, trading up a pair of pawns, so Giri goes g3.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if Anish can make some progress here, this endgame might potentially be unpleasant. The knight is always capable of jumping around.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So far, Wang Hao is holding.
Black is restricted here, but basically white's got 2 ideas. One would be to try to win h6. The other would be try to advance your pawns. And so h6 looks hard to get at.
Yeah, I agree. So he goes king f5 and h4, rook e7. I mean, g4. There's actually bishop g6, a funny move. Because you take there's rook f7, but king e5.
There's bishop g6? Oh my goodness. That's a nice trick. The rook endgame would be easy to hold. Wow.
Okay. Right, but now I would think white is just stuck with a rook on f5 and a knight on f4. So you just go king g7, king g8, and I don't think white can make any progress whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
So we see him going g5.
Okay, playing g5? Okay.
And rook f6. All right, so rook e1. Okay, but now your knight is free to move. It should still be an easy draw for Wang Hao, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's gaining time on the clock rather than losing time. So he's pretty confident about how he's defending at the moment.
Right. So if we have a very quick look at the results, we see that Sharkir Mamedyarov beat Topalov. The game between Rajabov and Anand ended in a draw. Wesley So beat MVL and Magnus beats Ariantari. So I guess Magnus grabbed the lead now together with Anand.
Yes, Magnus should have caught Anand in a shared first place here after this round.
Exactly. And this game is not over just yet. Perhaps Giri can squeeze out a rook and knight versus rook endgame. I'm pretty sure Wang Hao knows how to hold that, but we might be here for another 50 moves.
Right. And this is why I didn't quite believe they could stick to 15 minutes per round. Because, I mean, just every now and then you'll get a game where 100 moves get played on a 2-second increment, and that adds 2 minutes to the round.
Right, and it's starting to get a little bit tricky. A king of and black can barely make any moves. Rook b5, that's a good one though, because of king f6, you give another check. So Giri just passes him the move with rook a7. And king e6, it's starting to become unpleasant. But it should still be a draw. Rook e8, knight, there's no threats just yet.
You gotta check him back here.
but maybe g6 at some point.
It feels a little like the Philidor defense in the king if there weren't the bishop and knight on the board, right?
Yeah.
As long as the pawn's here, you're covering from the side. If it advances, he'll switch back and give checks.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure that Anish doesn't want to go pawn to g6. He feels that that endgame is just too easy of a draw. And probably he feels like he can go for that later on. He always has that endgame in his pocket, so to speak.
Yeah. I think rook and knight against rook is like not even worth trying at this level. Like,
no, it's a pretty elementary draw, I would say. Rook and bishop is very, very tricky.
Yeah,
but with
that one
knight,
always gets played out.
Right, yeah. But players these days also know very well how to hold that one. Okay, rook b6, yeah, Wang Hao is still holding on. g6, okay, Wang Hao is going to give up the bishop. Oh, he doesn't? What? Okay, it's fine, but I'm a little bit surprised.
He's playing the Philidor defense. As soon as the pawn goes to the 6th rank, you check from behind.
Knight g4, and this is a pretty standard draw. What you have to do is you just keep your rook on the other side to make sure you can never walk into any fork whatsoever.
Yeah.
And keep you always pin the knight and whatnot.
Harass the king from behind. Pinning the knight works. And the other thing is you always move your king to the other side of their king. So if their king like comes to the C file, B file, you'll run towards the F file. If it comes back to the F file, you run back towards the C file. So
right, so goes rook to d7. It's fine, but I personally don't really like that he's giving the rook there because it's close to the king, you know, so there's always a possibility of a fork.
Yeah.
Rook to c6.
Rook c6, that's to prevent the king from coming to c5 and sort of starting to bottle up his king on a7 with checkmates on the a file.
Right, and let me check real quick. So we got into this endgame and move 114. So at 164, this he can. Oh, but it's checkmate.
Yeah, it's checkmate right here. Rook b6 or rook b8.
He did the wrong defense. He had to keep his rook on the other side of the king, but he kept the rook like on the side of the king.
Right,
so to
here
speak,
he checks the king towards his king. This was a very, very bad move here, this rook d1, right? I mean, at the moment, what would white be threatening? Maybe knight c6, king a6, king c7, right? Probably
right. So after knight b4, what he should do is play the move rook to h1. His king is on a7, so you want to have his king is on the a file, so you want to keep your rook on the h file to give checks from behind and to pin the knight. But yeah, after rook d1, king c7, there's simply no way to stop checkmate, and Wang Hao lost the game.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, there we go, folks. I mean, with the 2-second increment, you can't really flag this one. He had to catch him in some kind of a trick, and I'm surprised that he did. You know, I thought that would be. I didn't even know that he would try playing it out, honestly, against a player of this level.
Yeah, I don't know Wang how he lost that, but it happened. So yeah, Anish Giri moves to 2.5 out of 4, only half point behind the leaders.
Wow. Okay. So that's nice. That's nice for Anish.
Yeah.
And let's see, who is he playing in round 5? It's going to be Vishy, one of the 2 leaders.
Yep, that's going to be a very exciting matchup. Wang Hao will have to recover this by playing Magnus in the next round. That's not an easy opponent after losing. I mean, there's really no worse way than losing a game like this. After 134 moves in a drawn endgame, it really sucks.
Yeah. And you know how one of the worst things about losing with white is then you have to play black the next game?
Yeah.
So I would say a similar experience is losing a game and then seeing your next pairing is Magnus Carlsen.
Right. Yeah. No, that can easily, send you down because you already lost one game. You're, kind of dejected, and then you can easily lose to Magnus as well.
Yeah. Whew. Okay, so he's going to supposedly get a 5-minute break there from that one. So maybe I should check if there's any exciting game from round 4 that I missed. Let's see. We didn't miss many of the games. We didn't see Mamad Yarov against Topalov. So
right.
I'll try and check on that game, but Folks, feel free to shout at me. I know you already do, but feel free to shout at me if the next round starts while I'm looking at this game, and I'll stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
also let us know if there's any game we really have to go to if it's very exciting.
Yeah. So we've got a B3 English. When I was younger, Benjamin, I wouldn't have been able to resist the move F4 in a position like this with the bishops on B2 and G7. If there was like a weird move that you could technically play, I would have to do it. I guess it's like some people, how they joke about en passant. That was me in weird moves. If there was some position where you could play King D2 and it was reasonable, I would play King D2.
Right.
Okay, but we get pretty good looking moves here from both players. They each set up a side of the board that they're strong on. C5 to take away the D4 square from the white knights primarily.
Mm-hmm.
And Topalov chooses to open the center in response, which I think also makes sense if you're going to be castling into black's area.
Right.
G5.
So yeah, initially Topalov got a pretty promising position.
And here comes F4, and he hasn't even castled yet. I mean, was there an option for white to maybe not castle? I wonder.
That is a good question. Yeah.
Well, I found one.
He got a castle at some point.
He went to the queen side.
Yep.
Yeah. So he avoided that attack. He said, I see your attack. I'm not going there. So now Mamedyarov explodes the center too. This game is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
G4. Okay. Normally you'd think you'd have to run, but maybe because this game makes no sense, he'll open up the H file for Topalov by taking on G3. No, he doesn't. Okay. Instead, he blockades the H file. This is more like what I would expect with my king over here. G4 pawn gets protected. I don't know that it needed any protection. Knight C5, good. Knight A5, good. Rook F1, good. I still just like Topalov's position much better.
Right.
Takes the pawn on E4. Oh, the E3 pawn looks like it's dying. Oops. I don't know if he planned for this. Check here. And if he took on C8, there was knight C3 to E2. Huh. Yeah. Oops. That was oops.
Yeah, something went wrong there for Topalov. He ran into a fork. So yeah, an unfortunate loss for him, but I guess the next round is starting very, very soon. We have Wang Hao against Magnus Carlsen, Vishy Anand against Anish Giri, Mamedyarov against Rajabov, MVL Topalov, and Aryan Tari against Wesley So. Let's have a look at the game between Wang Hao against Magnus Carlsen.
All right. You got us there right in time, Benjamin. We got to see 1D4 get played.
Indeed. And we see Magnus going for the semi-Slav nice. Queen C2 by Wang Hao. This is one of the more solid variations. And B6 by Magnus, which is a bit of a sideline. White has many ways of playing here, but I always thought that white is a tiny bit better if he just makes natural moves like bishop D3, castles, followed by B3.
Mm-hmm. That's what Wang Hao's doing.
Right. And actually, I just wanted to bring this to your attention real quick. We're going to see a very exciting game between Mamedyarov and Rajabov. We have an exchange Slav there.
Yeah.
And already some pieces have been traded off.
Yeah. Jan Ludvig, when the lineup came out for Norway Chess, Jan Ludvig, former Norwegian chess player, now Norwegian chess commentator, suggested that in addition to, thinking about the players in a vacuum as to who you want to invite to a tournament, there may also be certain pairings you don't want to invite to a tournament. Like if you invite Mamedyarov and Rajabov, that's going to be one game that you're not going to get played in your tournament. So you should perhaps just pick one of them.
Right, but to be fair, actually Mamedyarov might be a little bit better here. He has the more active bishop than Rajabov. Because e6 generally, I mean, it's true. Like, white is a tiny bit better. I play like this myself.
Okay, so white's gonna win the game off of the e2 bishop.
Well, we don't know, but yeah.
I see.
We'll see how
I thought you pointed out this game in order to tell me that it wasn't actually going to be a game.
That's what I thought initially, but I have to be fair. I play this line myself with white, and white's always a tiny bit better here.
But then you saw that bishop on e2 and you thought, never mind, this is really pleasant for white.
Well, there's also a line in the Slav where they just trade off everything, and here they've only traded off one pair of bishops, and white has the slightly better bishop, so he can claim a very small edge.
Okay,
we'll
well,
see later.
That may be. I wonder if it will really be more exciting than Wang Hao and Magnus, however, who have also the exchanged Slav pawn structure without the active bishop advantage.
Yeah. The game between Wang Hao and Magnus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, both sides have a bishop on b2 and b7, which is sort of staring at its own pawn. And then white's bishop on d3 is slightly more active than the bishop on e7, but I guess the game is approximately even. But what I've noticed about Magnus is that he's playing a little bit slow in this tournament.
That's true. Every time we're watching, he's under 2 minutes within 10 moves.
Right. And actually, there was an instructive moment after the move a6 by Magnus. Wang Hao perhaps should have played the move a4 first, restricting the b5 push, then followed by queen e2, and then the attack on a6 pawn will be slightly uncomfortable to deal with.
So maybe he was afraid that knight e4 would get played on the next move if he didn't move his queen right away.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So we see Magnus trading down on the c file and then going queen to b8. This one looks approximately even to me. He wants to go rook to c8. So I'm curious to see whether Magnus can use his magic in the endgame later on, or if we'll just see, a draw here.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think that so far I haven't felt Magnus's normal magic today.
Right.
Maybe I put him on too much of a pedestal, but
yeah. I have to agree with that. I feel like he won that game. He won that game against MVL, but he blundered in the opening. He could have just been lost after rook c2. Then he had that game. He was winning against Giri, but he missed a win. And there was another win of which he was almost lost out of the opening against Rajabov. And then what was his other game?
I mean, we saw him win against Aryan Tari.
Oh, right. Yeah. And Aryan, just got himself into trouble. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Queen d1. I don't know if I mean, the times cannot be correct. It feels very weird for Magnus to get down to 30 seconds here. So I guess there might be a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, I keep wondering if there's an issue with the relay every time I see Magnus using his time, but even when it refreshes the clocks like it just did, he's still always behind on the clock, which is weird. I mean, you'd think normally other people would be sort of second guessing and afraid against the champ, and they'd be getting low on time.
Yeah, especially because Magnus's instincts are so good that you would expect him to just, depend on that. But I like his last move here, knight b6. I think his idea sooner or later is to go knight e4. And after that trade, the d5 square opens up for his knight and he can put pressure on the pawn on e3.
Yeah.
All right. So
also, I mean, I guess he was perhaps never going to be in a position where he could trade on e5. So why leave his knight on d7 where it's just under tension, right? Like if you can't win the fight for e5, like just get out of the way of that.
Indeed. Yeah. So let's have a look at the other games. The game between MVL and Topalov looks quite exciting. Topalov has sacrificed 2 pawns and is going for the attack here, but I'm not sure if it's really working out.
So what would he be threatening here? Rook takes h2? h3 somehow?
Potentially, perhaps. I wonder if MVL can get away with rook a to e1, or if then the sacrifice suddenly works. It's on the he's listening to the commentator. That's not a good idea. Bishop takes d4.
Yeah, bishop takes d4.
So pawn takes, and do you? I think you sack on h3. So you take king g1. You go rook takes c1, because after queen takes, there's queen h2 checkmate, and after rook takes, there's queen g3. You cannot go queen g2, because then you hang the rook on h1. So king f1, and you have to give up the queen, because otherwise there's queen f3 checkmate.
Oh, if only this pawn weren't on d4, it would have all worked out for white. That would have been quite a sting at the end. But as it is, looks like white's going to drop the f pawn because the bishop's attacked, and the h pawn will go home. And MVL's nightmare continues. Maybe we shouldn't watch any more of his games just for his sake. I mean,
yeah, okay. Be careful. After d5, he is threatening checkmate. So I don't like queen f3. I would have liked to see f6 right away. g5 is fine though. Bishop b5. Bishop b5 is a nice move because it stops the pawn from getting to h2, and it supports d6. But after f6, h2 is just game over, right?
Queen seems to be on it.
All right, and king d4 is a typical last move that was actually resigns, and then put his king on e5.
Because here and here. Yeah. Oof. Well, that was quite a tactic. Let's just go here for 1 second, folks. The reason the queen was sacked in this position, this move didn't come up in the game, was because of this checkmate with very, very few pieces, this attack here. And had the king gone in the other direction, knight f2 would also force the queen sack. And finally, Benjamin's other point was that the rook would finally be undefended here. So, I mean, it felt like rook ae1 would be the best move for white to bring pieces towards the situation, right? Maybe stop bishop d4, rook e2 ideas. But somehow rook ae1 just directly lost to this combination. And this was a fantastic combination for a blitz game by Topalov.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, it doesn't work if the white rook is not on e1, because we see many lines that it's actually hanging. But yeah, I feel like we cursed MVL just a little bit, because as soon as we went to his game, he blundered, and yeah, he's on 0 out of 5 now.
Yeah. Okay, the other games are finishing up. Anand has lost to Giri. Wang Hao has lost to Magnus. Rajabov and Mamedyarov drew, and we've got one game still going, a rook and pawn ending. And it looks like Tari's run is being halted here.
Right, so after the move a7, Anand lost, so he might have lost on time. I don't know. But if we go back almost, it looks like Anand was just up a pawn, and he was on his way to win. So it feels like Giri's luck doesn't end. He won that rook and knight endgame versus the rook, and now he wins what should have been a lost game.
You're right. He was just down this a6 pawn here during this endgame, and Anand must have gotten really low on time and then played a7 instead of moving the knight or something like that, and then resigned.
Yeah. All right. Has Aryan lost as well? It looks lost after king h6, but I didn't see any more moves coming through after that.
Right. Yeah, I don't see any more either.
But yeah, we got to give credit to Anish. He kept on finding chances, and in that other game, he kept on fighting for the win. So, you force your own luck.
Yeah, I mean, he made active threatening moves, right? If we look at that situation, he could have just sat there with his rook on a7, right? And probably eventually lost the game. But he went for something active with the rook, which risks losing faster to the a pawn, but also makes the moves harder for the opponent when they're low on time.
Yep. In the meantime, the game between Mamedyarov and Rajabov did finish in a draw. And Magnus won a very nice game against Wang Hao with the black pieces. So I feel like by now, I guess Magnus is leading the field, and Anish is half a point behind him.
That's right. Okay, Carlsen did show his endgame, and I do love the Carlsen endgame. So let me see how that played out. since I'm not seeing any. Oh, Tari and Wesley So. There are the moves. Okay. So it was king h6, g3, defending the h-pawn in advance. Rook goes to the third rank. Yikes. Well, that's the end of that. Check and collect.
Indeed. Yeah.
3 extra pawns.
Yeah, so you're not going to hold an endgame like that against Wesley So. So let's have a very quick look at the standings.
Okay.
We see indeed that Magnus Carlsen is leading the field with 4 points out of 5 games. Right behind him is Anish Giri. Then we have Wesley So, Shakir Mamedyarov, and Vishy Anand. They're each on 3 points, so that's still +1. Right now, Rajabov is just outside of the bubble, and then we have Topalov, Wang Hao, and Aryan Tari on 2 points. They still have a chance of making it in, but I mean, there's no chance really anymore for MVL at this point, I'd say.
Yeah, 5 rounds in, it's too late to start scoring and make it into the top half. He's just waiting for the day to be over. He's going to go into some protective bubble where he stops experiencing the day.
Indeed. So yeah, everyone who's watching, you can pat yourself on the back. We're all doing better than MVL because we're all on 0 out of 0, and MVL's on 0 out of 5. But yeah, let's see how then what kind of matchups do we have in the next round?
I don't see them yet. But I know one matchup we haven't had yet is Carlsen versus Anand, so that's going to be coming up at some point. Magnus and Anish have already played each other.
I see the pairings right here. So Magnus is playing with the white pieces against Wesley So. Then we have Veselin Topalov playing Aryan Tari. Rajabov playing Maxim Vasylegraf. Anish is playing Mamedyarov, and Wang Hao is playing Vishy Anand.
Okay.
So we talked about this earlier, how Wang Hao has now lost 2 games in a row. He needs to find his footing again and not just make a free fall, so to speak.
Yeah, that's hard to do. I mean, there's not terribly much sporting motivation at this point, right? Like, you're having a nightmare. There's nothing to be gained by scoring 1 more point. So you just have to, love yourself or love chess enough to keep it going somehow.
Right. And actually, if I just had a very quick look at the world rankings, it's actually extremely close now at the top. So we have Nakamura on 28.50, Aronian on 28.49.6, Caruana on 28.46.8, and Carlsen on 28.46.6. So he's only 0.2 behind Fabiano. He's 3 points behind Levon, and he's 3.4 behind Nakamura. So if he wins his next game, he will overtake Hikaru in the world rankings.
Yeah, 4 players within 4 points of each other. Exciting. Yeah. All right, let's check out Carlsen's endgame here against Wang Hao from this last round. So they just traded knight and bishop on c4 right here. Actually, a trade initiated by Wang Hao. But Carlsen says yes and goes for it and trades into the pure bishop endgame. He's got the outside pass pawn here. They each have a protected pass pawn. I don't have an immediate evaluation looking at this. Do you see this have an instinct of what's going on?
Yeah, so I would think this is a draw because the position is kind of locked. White does have some pawns fixed on the dark squares, but I would think, let's say he puts his pawn on g4, he really has some sort of wall built, right? Like, how do you ever break through there? But apparently Magnus found a way to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, in my experience in this kind of endgame, you need a route in for the king to win most of these endgames. It's rare that you could win the endgame without a penetration point. So let's see. First, he played f5. Now, if you ever play G4, do you think Magnus is going to trade once and create an outside pass to H pawn?
Well, I guess after G4, he might eventually go for someone like G5 and put pressure on opponent F4. And if then some trades happen on that side of the board, he will find an opening for his king.
So G5 right away or eventually?
Eventually, I think.
Eventually. Okay.
Right.
So like H6 and G5 maybe. Or king on
right.
F6. Okay. So you don't think it would be a threat to immediately trade, and then I guess I go like H6, G6, H5.
Yeah. But Magnus found a really nice way through. He played G5 and then after king back to F2, he played king G6, bishop A1 and H5. So now he's threatening to go H4 and damage white's pawn structure. So Wang Hao saw himself forced to play H4 himself, but this creates a huge weakness on the H4 square. So let's see how Magnus took advantage.
So basically he's keeping the black king out. He's willing to take on like almost any kind of weakness just to not let the king have a route in. And I wouldn't be sure that I could break through. I mean, it's a big weakness, but let's see what he does. So first nails the king to H4 and then brings his king to the queen side. Where is he going to get through? He's going to threaten bishop B4. And then if white plays C5, then there's a way through for the king.
Indeed. Yeah. So bishop B2 was played. Oh, and this is very instructive. After bishop B2, king C6, white is in Zugzwang. Because you cannot move your king, right? Like after king H3, what was played, there's bishop B4. And you cannot stop bishop to E1. If black would play bishop B4 here, there's still king F2. And you're holding on for the moment. You also cannot move your bishop because let's say you go bishop C1, there's bishop B4, and after king F2, there's bishop C3, and white loses the bishop. So there's just no move to be made.
Like ideally, white could somehow leave the king on G3, and then against bishop B4, you would come and defend this pawn here with king F2.
Right.
But here, to head towards F2, he can't stop bishop to E1. It's taking me a while to digest what you explained.
Indeed. And he resigned after bishop E1 check because you have to keep defending the H-pawn. So you have to play king H3, but then after bishop D2, you're losing the E-pawn, and slowly but surely everything is falling apart.
Yeah. Wow. So he actually won the game without getting the king in, although there was a threat to bring the king in one line. But that's pretty rare for the bishop to break through by itself.
Yeah. So amazing technique by Magnus. He created that weakness on H4 by pushing those pawns on the king side. And then Wang Hao simply had too many problems. The pawn on B3 was something he constantly had to keep an eye out on. The pawn on E3 is also weak in many lines, and the pawn on H4 as well.
Yeah. Fascinating. Now, I would expect round 6, and people in chat are probably also wondering about round 6, but I don't see it yet. I just refreshed once while you were explaining this endgame to us, and I don't see it yet. If somebody does see it, let me know.
Yeah, I don't know why it has not started yet, because I thought that there was a break. Oh, we're getting word there is a break going on right now. So I guess they take a break right now and then play the last 4 games in a row.
Okay. All right.
So we will be taking a short break as well. But don't go anywhere, you guys. There will be more action coming your way from the Norway Chess Blitz tournament. We'll see you guys at the end of the break.
Chess.com's coverage of the 2022 Candidates Tournament is coming this June. Watch the world's best players, including Alireza Firouzja, Fabiano Caruana, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Hikaru Nakamura, and more. The winner will get their chance to face Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship title. The exclusive video feed will be right here on chess.com, so don't miss that. I know you won't. What else would you be doing other than watching the candidates in June? Welcome back, everybody. For today, we have only a couple of candidates here, but we've got the world champion himself playing in Norway Chess, and we are about to get into round 6 of 9.
Yeah, so the candidates is going to be very exciting. Yeah, actually, the only candidate I think that is in this tournament is Timur Rajabov. I'm a little bit surprised that he is playing here, as it's right before the candidates tournament, but perhaps he feels like, he hasn't played a whole lot lately, and maybe he just feels like he needs to warm up before the tournament. I don't think he's having the greatest Blitz event yet so far, but there's still 4 more rounds to go. But yeah, who is your pick actually, David, to win the candidates?
I'm gonna go with Firouzja.
Okay.
Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Yeah, I think it is gonna be either Firouzja, Fabiano, Ding Liren, or Hikaru. I think one of those 4. But yeah, since this is a chess.com stream, I'm forced to say Hikaru. So yeah, I think he's gonna win.
That's good. I was gonna fault you for picking half the field. I was like, if you get to pick half the players, you've got a really good chance of getting it right. No, Hikaru, that's a bold prediction. I do think that Magnus Carlsen seems to have played A4 against Wesley So.
Wait, what? A4? What is that? Like, what's the what is his point? But the funny thing is, with the moves that have just been played on the board, it's transposed into a very normal game where the move A4 actually makes sense.
Really?
Yeah.
What moves do you see? I see A4, knight F6, knight F3, and the A4 move still looks a little weird.
Oh, so we see a double fianchetto here.
Okay.
Bishop
there it comes.
G2.
Sterben says A4 could transpose into the Italian game.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is a popular opening nowadays with A4. Yeah, good call, Sterben.
Yeah, and here after D4, D5, the move A4 actually makes sense because in a lot of lines, white is trying to gain space. So we see D5 by Wesley.
In the sort of symmetrical Grunfeld positions.
Indeed. And let's see how Wesley is going to proceed here after the move castles by Magnus.
Knight F6 and G6 was a pretty safe approach by Wesley to this A4 move. He didn't get sucked into any kind of early battle on the queen side or anything too weird.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised he did that. You would think that if your opponent plays 1A4, why wouldn't you try to take advantage with, a move like D5 or E5, right? You're basically playing with white.
Yeah.
So now after knight takes C5 and bishop E3, this transposes into, a reversed Grunfeld defense, where actually black very often plays the move A5. So now Magnus can play the move A4, A5 here, which is something, you would often try to stop with colors reversed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, QT Jelly, I think that Ding looked really good in the long month of games that he played with other Chinese players. I don't know how much to read into the games because, a lot of his opposition was 200 or 300 points lower. Let's say 230 points lower rated than him. But I thought he looked pretty good. So he certainly won't be rusty. He'll have his chances.
Right. So yeah, after B6, there's still no moves coming through. 25-1 odds, that's quite surprising. I don't know who is the I would say Ding probably is the favorite, but it's of course very difficult to call.
Yeah, 25-1 seems like it can't be right.
No.
It can't be right because that would be a 4% chance. On average, if Ding had an average chance to win, it would be a 12.5% chance to win. So to give him 4%, I mean, you're pretty much saying he's the worst player in the tournament.
Right. Anyway, in the meantime, Magnus has proceeded with the moves Rook A3 and Queen A1. Kind of interesting. He's trying to put pressure along the A file, but it doesn't really threaten anything because the Rook on 8 is protected twice. So we see Wesley going Knight CD7. He's threatening to go E5. So perhaps Magnus should put his own knight on the E5 square.
Yeah. And perhaps he will, because trading that knight would also take off some of the defense of B6. Okay, and he did go for it. There's some tactic to check on that diagonal if Black had moved the knight on F6, but I'm sure he checked it.
And we see Wesley going bishop C6. I guess he's planning to go B5, making sure White cannot open the A file anymore, and then he's trying to go B4. So I kind of like this move by Wesley.
Yeah, that looks like quite a nice move, honestly, because I don't think Magnus wants to trade on B6 yet. And I don't think Magnus wants to play bishop D4 and have his whole A file operation get passed by this B pawn. So actually it asks Magnus a very, very difficult question. And Magnus, as usual for today, is 30 seconds behind on the clock. And this one's going to cost him some thought as well.
Right. So let's see what he will do.
Rook B3, a weird move to prevent B5.
Right, yeah, that could be an option, but perhaps then we just play a move like Knight FD7, and I feel Black should be doing completely fine there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't believe Black is worse. I'm just trying to think of how Magnus might keep playing this. And this option looks like basically strategic capitulation. He's like, well, yeah, you get the file that I worked to open, and I've got nothing for it, really.
Yeah, so he's traded the rooks and went Queen at D1, Bishop F8 by Wesley. This move looks very weird, but he wants to go Knight to D7 and not trade the bishops. Queen D3 by Magnus. I guess now Knight D7 and Bishop D4. Magnus, he's on a 15 seconds.
He's headed to E3 or something, but his position's not good, and Wesley definitely senses it. I can sense in Wesley's moves that he's thinking about running White over here.
Yeah, so I like this move Queen B4 a lot, putting pressure upon B2. All right, so let's see what has happened in the meantime. Rook to C8, activating the rook. Okay, Knight at D1, that looks very passive. Wait, Bishop B5, how do you defend everything? Your queen is under attack. C2, isn't C2 just falling there? Queen E3, Rook takes C2. Looks like Magnus is collapsing, only a couple seconds on the clock.
Yeah, he's got 3 seconds in a difficult position. It's very easy to miss something at this point. He is mildly human. There's no magic sauce when you're losing on the board and on the clock.
Right, so Bishop C3, barely trying to hang on here. Let's see where Wesley is going to go with the queen, but really any square looks good here.
Yep, C4, A4, C5. I caught myself before saying A5.
Wesley also getting down on the clock. Queen C5, we see a trade.
Queen C5, queen trade. That looks comfortable for Black.
Yeah, I guess Bishop takes, and he's pushed D4, Bishop E1. Magnus with all his pieces on the back rank, looking very, very passive here. Let's see how.
These are like the worst possible squares for the pieces, more or less, other than Bishop on G1, which is impossible.
Wait, but Rook C1 now, how do you defend the knight? Because D3 is also coming through. Oh, Magnus in huge trouble. D3. Wait, and if you take everything, there's Bishop E4, and that just wins the game for Black.
Yeah.
So Magnus.
And that's happening. I guess he didn't really have another way to stop D2, huh?
Indeed, yeah. So I think he's just losing the game because Rook D3, Bishop takes B4 leads to a lost king and pawn game.
Yeah, I mean, he had literally no way to stop D2. King G2, Rook takes Bishop. I mean,
yeah, so Wesley So takes down the world champion with the black pieces. Perhaps Magnus was a little bit too creative in the opening. It feels like he was asking for it. If you go 1a4 on the first move, he had a fine position later on, but he was spending too much time as well.
Yeah. All right, we're back to Vishy Anand. I was afraid to click, but his position looks pretty good at the moment. Threatening a1 equals queen.
Yeah. In the meantime, Veselin Topalov has beaten Ariantari, and the games between Anish Giri and Mamedyarov, the game has ended in a draw, and the game between Wang Hao and Vishy Anand has ended in a draw as well. But yeah, I'm pretty sure MVL is going to win this game. The pawn on a2 is too strong. He's forcing white to give up the bishop for the knight, but then you're just going d3, d2, and rook c1, and one of the pawns will promote.
All right, and the resignation comes in there. Folks, we're just going to put 2 moves on the board so that so you can see how something like this ends. Even if the king makes it over here in time to fight for control of d1, you can play rook c1 for black, and one of these pawns must come through.
Yep. So MVL gets on the scoring board. He's now on 1 point out of 6 games. But yeah, even if he wins the last 3, he will end up on 4 out of 9, which I'm pretty sure is going to give him another black game.
Yeah, that's locked in. But hey, he got on the board. That's got to feel great. That's got to feel great.
That's definitely got to feel good. Yeah.
So in the lead, Wesley So, as well as Anish Giri, catch Magnus Carlsen with 4 and 2. By pulling Magnus down, Wesley has made this a very, very close race with 3.5 points. We've got Mamedyarov and Anand also only half a point behind. And Topalov, who won this round, is even within 1 point of the lead in 6th place. So, yeah, we've probably got 6 people competing for first place still at this point, and about 8 people competing for those top 5 spots that will get the extra white.
Right. Yeah, I think at this point it's very unlikely that Ariantari will, make it out of the bottom half with -2. I think he's probably going to have another black game. But Wang Hao and Radjabov still have a chance. They will need to win at least 1 game, probably 2, to make it into the top half. So yeah, I think we're headed into a very exciting last 3 rounds.
And the other race that we're watching, Magnus Carlsen would need to win his last 3 games in a row to take over the #1 spot in the world Blitz ratings. So that is feeling really unlikely to me at the moment. I know he's tied for first, but I feel like he's not looking the best today, Benjamin.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that he will get the #1 spot in the Blitz rankings. So yeah, who is he playing in the next round? It looks like he will be playing Vishy Anand with the black pieces. That's another classic because they played in the 2013 and 2014 World Championship matches, which, I mean, it's already almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great matchup. Magnus did win those World Championship matches, obviously. But he's off form today. I'm sure that Anand relishes every single time he beats Magnus, I think. And he'll be sensing that today he's got some chances. But boy, I wish I were so good at anything that when I was winning an event, people would say I didn't seem to be on form that day. I mean, he's tied for first place, and I'm thinking like, wow, something's wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. It feels like he's being, especially it feels like he's being too slow. That's been a main problem, I would say, for Magnus. He needs to find his rhythm. I felt like the games he's played haven't been too convincing, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Always dragging on the clock today.
Yeah, and that is going to cost you. There's only a 2-second increment. It's difficult to lose on time, but it's very easy to make mistakes when you're that low on the clock.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I can see Anish's tournament getting ruined by MVL. I could see that happening now that MVL finally got on the board. Anish is going to complain after the event, right? Why did he have to play MVL in the second half instead of the first half? If that costs him the top spot.
So yeah, the players are getting ready. But yeah, also, yeah, we see that these top players, they know how to take advantage when someone gets low on the clock. So Magnus definitely needs to find his footing there.
Yeah. So far, the coolest game I've seen was Topolov's combination with rook takes h3.
Oh yeah,
that was the game that electrified me the most so far. Other than that, we had quite a few exchange Slav structures and so forth. Some grinding, some symmetrical Grunfelds.
Right. So let's see what is going to happen in this game. I'm pretty sure they're going to be off any second now. I think this game between Vishy Anand and Magnus Carlsen is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, can't wait for that battle. Anand versus Carlsen. And do you think Magnus will play a real opening against Vishy, or is he going to give him some A5 or H5 kind of stuff?
It's a very good question. I mean, he seems to be in a creative mood, so I guess that's what he's going for.
I wonder what prompts some of Carlsen's weird openings. Like, is he more likely to do it when he's doing well or when he's doing badly? I think there was one Olympiad where he'd started badly and in classical chess played something like E4, G6, D4, Knight F6, E5, Knight H5 against Mickey Adams.
Right. Yeah, that was at the 2010 Olympiad. Yeah, and we actually see him playing the modern here against Anand. Vishy going all out with the move H4, and Magnus plays Knight to F6 to stop that H5 push.
Whew. Yeah. Vishy says, good form, bad form. Here we go.
So F3 by Vishy, making sure there's also no Knight G4 jump. And now the drawback of the move Knight F6 is that White has the move Bishop H6 available in many variations. All right, so H5 and now Knight H3 by Anand. Generally, Black has to take this knight on H3. If you allow the move Knight at G5, White always gets an annoying initiative on the king side. So I think Magnus, and he has taken the knight.
Nice. Yeah, in my Blitz games, people always let me put the knight on G5. You're the first person I've heard say that you just have to take it.
You should take it. And the thing is, after Queen...
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the studio. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order before we return back to the broadcast. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the studio. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order for the broadcast to return. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the broadcast. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get it back. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here on the broadcast. I hope that we can get things in order soon. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here on the broadcast. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll stick with us and be patient as we work to return. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get this back in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. How much longer does this have to go, guys? Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get this in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some Oh, I'm messing with my mic here. I won't do that. I won't do that. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. That's not how my wife would. Wait, hold on. Wait, this is how I would do it. I was taught to do this the right way. My mom said if I did it this way and you fold it this way, no wrinkles. There you go. Back in that order. We'll get that. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. I think we're back now. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the studio. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order before we return back to the broadcast. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the studio. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order for the broadcast to return. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here in the broadcast. I hope you'll be patient with us as we work hard to get it back. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here on the broadcast. I hope that we can get things in order soon. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here on the broadcast. I hope you'll be patient with us as we get things in order. This video will now play on loop. Hi, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. I hope you'll stick with us and be patient.
On here. Previously, Magnus had 2 extra pawns to go with the rook against 2 pieces, but now it's looking pretty messy.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry we are experiencing some technical difficulties on the broadcast right now. This video will now play on loop, but I think we are back.
Previously, previously, Magnus had 2 extra pawns to go with the rook against 2 pieces, but now it's looking kind of messy.
Yeah, that a pawn of Anand is now pushing up the board, and I don't see how. Wait, did Magnus flag?
I guess so.
Wow,
He's
so
been at 0
Magnus
seconds for
loses
the last
another
minute I
game.
was watching the game.
Yeah, I guess he flagged after rook to h1. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, let's say Anand had played a6. What was he going to do?
That is a very good question, because if you go rook g5, I just go a4. Here the double pawns are quite useful. And yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, maybe you can bring the rook back by going, let's say, rook e5, a7, rook e8, but sooner or later you're gonna lose a full rook for that pawn.
Yeah, and pretty soon with knight c7.
Yeah, so Magnus loses yet another game. Vishy moves to like the lead or something. I don't know. Let's have a look at what happened in the other games. So
and look at this. Vishy, he won again.
Vishy, he won again against Anish Giri.
Yeah.
We have Wesley So beating Veselin Topalov with the white piece, and Aryan Tari got back into it. He beats Timur Rajabov, so maybe Aryan still has an outside chance in the game between Shakhriyar, Mamedyarov, and Wang Hao, and then a draw.
Yeah. E takes d6, queen d6, and resigned right here before white could play queen takes queen and rook takes rook.
Yep.
Was this like a blunder on the last move here or something? Let me see.
It's
rook d7,
be,
king b7,
maybe...
pawn takes d6. White's threatening some things.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate blunder by Topalov. Perhaps he forgot that even if white captures the rook on e8, he's still stopping that e-pawn.
Yeah. But I think he may also have not had much to do here, right? Because white's threatening rook b4 and queen d7 and rook e2.
Yeah. Oh, there's the it's looking tough for black here, because the e2 pawn can be picked up any moment, and the d pawn for white looks very scary, and white also has an attack towards the black king.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, that wraps up round number 7.
Yeah.
If we have a very quick look at the standings, I don't know if we can pull it up, but Wesley So is currently leading the field with 5 points out of 7 games. In sole second place, we have Vishy Anand and Anand. So it looks quite likely that those two will get an extra white game. Then we have Anish Giri, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and Magnus Carlsen on 4 points out of 7 games. So they are currently in the bubble, getting another white game. And then we have Wang Hao, Aryan Tari, and Veselin Topalov on 3 points out of 7 games. They will have to win at least 1 game, probably 2, to make it in.
Yeah.
Then in second and last place, we have Timur Rajabov. It's very unlikely that he will make it in. And in last place, still MVL, who has won his last 2 games.
Yeah. Salvaging his pride very nicely at the end of this tournament. So I think that's like a great thing that you can salvage in such a situation, because if you prove to yourself that you can play well when you're depressed and you're at 0 and 5, then you can carry that forward, that you're like, okay, no matter what adversity I get, I can always find a way to keep finding good moves.
Indeed, that's a very good thing. And yeah, that should give him more confidence going into the classical. I guess, wait, will we get I guess the next round will start pretty soon, right? I don't think there's another break.
Yeah, probably the next round will be pretty soon. We could check out, one of these games while we're waiting if we wanted to. Let's see. Let's look at Vishy against Anish. B3, D5, bishop B2, bishop F5, double fianchetto. And then knight h4 for the bishop pair. Bishop g4, bishop h5. Messy.
Yeah, things did get pretty messy indeed. MVL with the tactics later on.
Fancy stuff.
So it looks like around here, Anish should be doing pretty well, but things went wrong later on, it seems.
e4. An explosion. Maybe just castle. Maybe just castle and ignore the whole explosion. No, he trades, goes to the end game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he wants the e5 square for the knights, huh?
Yeah, and for those of you who are wondering, this is an invitational tournament. So if people are wondering, why isn't X playing or why isn't Y playing? It's sometimes the answer is just very simple. The answer most of the times is because a certain player was not invited. And sometimes the answer is they were invited, but they declined. So there you have your answer, guys.
Right. Yeah, I mean, actually, how they made their field for this tournament is complicated.
Yeah.
And took a while. So now Vishy just goes into this rook and pawn ending with really active rooks. One extra pawn, but he has nothing but isolated pawns on the entire board. I find it very hard to win an endgame like this where you don't have a strong pawn anywhere.
Right.
Like, who's ever supposed to win this endgame for white?
Yeah, it's quite funny. Like, both sides have very ugly pawns. I mean, everything is split. But white is up a pawn. C6 is weak. F4 can be weak. White managed to go king g2 to f3. So yeah, MPL managed to pull out a win here.
Went with an active rook defense. Anish. King comes to attack f4. So around here, oof. Even here, I don't know that white has enough to win. He drives the a pawn home, and well, that now is that really okay for black to let the pawn go like that? All right, the next round is starting. We'll go check it out. Wesley So, our current leader, playing the Queen's Gambit accepted, just like he does in classical chess. So far, he's seemed to play mostly main openings in Blitz. Some other people have mixed it up, but not him that I've seen.
No. Yeah. So he's just going for a very standard approach. The Queen's Gambit decline, and he trades on d4 and goes bishop e7. This is very similar as to what he did with the black pieces against Dayak. I believe Dayak now played the move knight at d2 or bishop e2 and then b5 from black. And after a4, Wesley took an a4. And, well, we see something else. But black should be pretty fine. He goes queen to d7, preparing the move knight to c6, or in some cases, rook to c8.
Yeah, knight f3 threatens knight e5. So, for example, knight c6 has been prevented because you can trade once and then clean up. So he covers it with the...
Oh, wait, e5. Doesn't e5 win a piece? Because where do you go with the knight? Knight f5, bishop e4. Wait, what? Isn't that just game over?
e5, knight f5, bishop e4. Well, that's unfortunate. That queen just went to the wrong square.
Yeah, he took away the last escape square for the knight, and e5 is on the board
bishop
by Wesley.
d3, you trade bishops and you play e4?
Well, I think after bishop d3, we just go queen takes f5. Wait, it's just, how is this not just over?
Sure,
I think Rajabov can resign here.
I blunder things like this every time I play Blitz. This is exactly what I would do. Just put my queen on a normal square and not look whether my pieces have moves.
That's quite shocking. Yeah,
why did you notice that right away?
Yeah, well, that's what, that's why you got to do your puzzles, guys.
Okay.
And then you spot these tricks instantly.
Man, so I should do some more puzzles if I'm blundering pieces like this?
Yep, that's what I tell all of my students. You got to do puzzles, and because you see, even at the top level, that's how games are decided.
All right, I will do it. I will do some more puzzles starting today. But meanwhile, I'm going to move to Vishy's board.
All right,
and
let's have a look.
See what he's up to. They're playing quickly.
Yeah, and this one looks like a very standard draw in the open Spanish.
I'm going to say open Spanish too. Yeah. Something about that B pawn being so far advanced and the isolated E pawn, it tells me open Spanish.
Right. White is a tiny bit better here. I don't know how I feel about, although I guess rook A3 looks very, very weird. But black's idea is to go A5, A4 and create counterplay that way. And I don't think there's really anything white can do about it.
Well, whenever you get the pawn to A5, white could bring the bishop back to D4, and then you can't play A4, can you? Oh, you still can, yeah. You can play A4, so, bishop B2, take on B3.
Right. So
and Anand's doing a really funny maneuver too. I mean, look at this. He just played bishop to A7 on purpose to harass this pawn from behind. Bishop D8 seems to hold. I don't know what else the bishop on B8 thinks is going to happen.
Yeah, because after rook D2, we can just play king E8 and everything is nicely defended. Perhaps Vishy should bring the bishop back, but now comes A5. If white goes bishop to C5, we can just play bishop E7. And I don't know, I'm starting to feel like maybe Mamedyarov can be a tiny bit better here.
I agree. Absolutely. So you don't need to feel weird about that. It's looking good for black.
Yeah. So bishop E7.
If he wins this endgame with this rook A3 plan, that's going to be a memorable tool for our viewers to use in their future games. Trap the rook on A3. See, bishop C1 wasn't played because of this pawn takes B3 threatening the rook. If you take on B3, of course, the rook gets out. And if you take here, then here, and it's worse for white.
Right, so we see Vishy going for C5, but this pawn on C5 could be a weakness. Perhaps black can consider E5 followed by king E6 and king D5 and rook A5. And I don't know, that C pawn looks weak. The pawn on A2 is a weakness, and Vishy is down half a minute on the clock.
So would you not play C5 for white here? Because I was thinking that if given the chance, black would have happily played C5 themselves to lock up the structure.
Well, I mean, then the black C5 pawn could be a weakness. In the meantime, we see Vishy going rook to D2, stopping move king D5, but perhaps now rook A5, but I guess he wants to go rook B2.
But that does lose a pawn, right? Rook B2, you can trade on C5, and black has rook C2 check.
Right, but I feel like that endgame should be a draw because black's pawns are pretty split. The white king will be pretty active. So I feel like if Shakir wants to keep winning chances, he takes the pawn.
He did take it. You were going to say he should play rook B5 if he really wants to win here?
Or rook A4, but it's
sort
not
of re-threatening king
yet.
D5.
Yeah, I feel like in a classical game, Vishy should hold this, but in Blitz, with only a minute, it's always very difficult. Okay.
He's trying to find ways to trade things off. And now if he plays G4, there's rook A4, right? He can't just go directly forward with this plan. He notices and gives up on it. So.
Right, but maybe he can still go, although if he goes G4 now, there will always be rook H3. C5 is not a move Mamedyarov should play due to rook B6, but maybe just king D5, just slowly push up the board.
Ooh.
That's a nice move.
Yeah. So I think also on G4, you can maybe play H4.
Wait, and actually,
even without the
what
rook.
does Vishy do now after C5? Like, where do you go with the rook? You probably have to go to E4. He goes rook B3, but he gives up the G4 pawn.
So now he would technically be down 2 pawns for a moment. I mean, not good pawns, but pawns. Also, black could maybe play C4 here, but rook C3. It's probably not good.
Yeah, I would just take on G4. I guess he wants to go rook to G3.
Right.
And then I wonder what he has in mind after rook A4. Perhaps the move H3. And if we take on G6, king D5 and rook H6. But there's still rook A3 and that H1 stays on the board.
Yeah. Okay, so all 3 of these moves are candidate moves. In a blitz game, it's hard to be sure which one's the right one. And that's where, like in a classical game, I mean, you could spend 15 to 20 minutes on one of these moves and really enjoy figuring out the answer.
Right.
But here you frantically calculate 1 or 2 variations and then guess.
Yeah, I would say generally it's more favorable for the attacking side because it's so difficult to defend that, players make mistakes when they're low on the clock. In the meantime, a lot has
so
happened.
What he played was he took and then defended the pawn on the fourth rank. So he just held that extra pawn for the moment. King c6 instead of d5 to keep white's rook at bay. And then after rook b8, he starts pushing this. And now it's maybe too late to take that g pawn. What's he got planned against king d3? Rook c4 behind the passer.
Yeah, king c2 and king c5. He goes rook g5, king d6, but white should be able to just sit now. He gives a check, king e7.
Oh, now white can just hold the sixth rank with the rook, right?
Oh, h3. That's a great defensive move by Vishy. He's temporarily sacrificing a pawn. But if you take, there's rook h6, you cannot defend the h pawn. And then you're also going to lose the c pawn on pretty much the next move.
Oh, and the win has slipped away if it was ever there.
Right. In the meantime, we see that Carlsen has beaten Topalov. Wesley So has beaten Rajapov. So Wesley cementing his lead in Giri drew Ariantari.
Yeah. And Vishy is continuing the winning streak after the losing streak.
Right,
now he wins with black.
Yep. And
with a breakthrough in an exchange down endgame. Wow.
Indeed. And we'll get a classic Philidor position here. I think where white just holds on the third rank. c2 is a draw. Yeah, white is just in time with king e1 to defend the pawn. Or king d3 going after the pawn.
King d3 to show us something different.
Yep.
Nice. I do like that the players have found a lot of are now often playing out these positions to really like clear finishes. They found a lot of they've practiced playing out the games all the way to the end without draw offers being available in a lot of tournaments. And so we often get a really clear result where all the spectators, we can understand why the game ends as it does. So Benjamin, walk us through the standings here. We've got one round to go. Who has a chance at this final fifth spot here?
Right. So Wesley So is currently leading the field. So a draw would be enough for him to clinch tournament victory. Magnus Carlsen and Vishy Anand are a point behind. So if they win and Wesley loses, they still catch him in the standings. Then we have Shakir Mamajarov and Anish Giri on 4.5 points, which means that Aryan has to win the last game and hope that either Anish or Mamajarov loses, and then his tiebreak will be good enough. And actually, all of a sudden, MVL is in a tie for 7th place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's gotten quite close, but as we guessed earlier, he was already kind of mathematically eliminated from getting into the top 5. What's really important and what's at stake for anyone who's joining us later on in this broadcast is that the top 5 players in this Blitz tournament will get 5 whites during the classical tournament that starts tomorrow. And the 6th through 10th place players in this Blitz event will get 5 blacks. So
right. But I'm going to make a very hot take here. Wesley So is playing in the last round with the white pieces against Anish Giri. I think we might see a quick draw there because it would secure tournament victory for Wesley So, and Anish would secure top 5, which would give him another white game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be very professional of them, and they are definitely professionals. Let's see who Mamajarov's opponent is in this last round.
Playing Magnus with the white pieces.
Carlsen. Has Magnus Carlsen ever played a professional quick draw because of tournament standings?
He made that bomb cloud repetition with Hikaru.
That's right.
Yep.
Bomb cloud.
But he's also played in matches, of course, where he was already leading. So in those games, he has forced the draw.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we'll see an exciting game between Shakir Mamajarov and Magnus Carlsen. So Aryan just has to win his game against Wang Hao and then hope that Magnus beats Mamajarov.
Yeah. Well, with what Tari's shown so far today, I could see it happen. I could see his side of it happening. I could see him winning the game. I mean, he's shown himself to be on the level of these other players in Blitz for today, at least.
Right, but I just had a very quick look at the cross table, and there we can see that Aryan Tari lost against the top 3 in the field. The tiebreaker is probably going to be Sonnenborn Berger, and that definitely does not favor him. So I think even if Tari wins and Mamedyarov loses, I think Tari does not make the top 5.
Wow. Okay. Well, it may all be decided in that case. And so we should just pick the most fun game to watch this round. We've got a few appetizing matchups. In addition to Mamedyarov and Carlsen, we've got MVL against Anand. That's pretty juicy now that MVL is on a 3-game winning streak.
Right. But yeah, let's see what is going to happen. A game should be starting very, very soon.
Yeah, there should have been a 5-minute break between rounds. In general, that's what they've offered the players, and we're probably 3 to 4 minutes into that 5-minute break.
Right, and yeah, it would be like if Arjan finishes in 6th place, he might be seated 6th in the tournament, and that might be a disadvantage because if you're seated 6th with 10 players, you will start off with 2 black games.
You know the pairing cross table for round robins?
Well, I only know that if you get number 5, then you switch every round. So you start off with white, then black, etc., etc.
Okay.
And I know that if you start off, if you have number 1, you start off with a double white.
Okay.
So what would you prefer? Would you take number 1 and take the double white, or would you take, let's say, number 5, so you switch every round, or any other number?
I would probably rather switch every round because it's what you're used to.
Right. Or what you could also do is like quickly look how the other players finished and then figure out who you want to have a white game against. So let's say Wesley So comes in 1st and Magnus Carlsen comes in 2nd. Then if Wesley picks number 1, he will have white in the 1st game against number 10, and then in round number 2 he will have white against number 2.
So if he knows round robin pairings by heart as well as you do, he could try to predict who he's going to play in what round as well.
Right. I don't know every pairing. I just know like how it starts off in the beginning, like especially for number 1. For number 1, it's actually pretty straightforward because you play number 10 and then you play 2, 3 through 9.
Yeah. I would not be able to figure that kind of stuff out, especially right after a chess game. I'm usually in kind of a chess fog. But I think probably just getting white, black, white, black, white, black with 5 whites would be good enough for me. I don't even know if you want white or black against Magnus.
Right. So let's see, the game should be starting any second now.
When they play the Armageddon games, the tiebreak games after a draw, do they switch color? Like if I play white against you and we agree to a draw, do you then play white against me in the rapid game?
No, in the Armageddon game, I think the color stays the same.
Color stays the same, but then they give the draw odds to black.
Right. So we see the game here. Well, which game do you want to have a look at?
Well, I've got Mamedyarov and Carlsen here, and Carlsen has been playing Kings, Indians, and Grunfelds today. He's played both. This time we get another symmetrical Grunfeld, c6, d5. No, queen to a5. More.
Right, but actually we could also very quickly go to the game between Wesley So and Anish Giri because it has finished in a draw already. Wesley So went for this line with bishop e3 and knight f3, and then the move knight to d2. After castles, he forced a draw by going knight b3. Black is forced to take on c3. After bishop d2, the only square you have for your queen is b2. After bishop c1, you have to go to c3, bishop b2, queen b2. And this is a known repetition, so the game ended in a draw.
I've seen this one too many times. You predicted that one correctly. That's the only fun thing about this game is that you nailed that prediction. And we've got a fun opening between Maxime and Anand. I think Jordan van Foreest has tried out this line recently as white. Right. It's a throwback to 150 years ago. This line was popular. It's a Joko, not piano. It's a Joko with d4 where you give up a pawn. And
you go ahead.
Yeah.
Look what MVL just did.
All right, let me get there. Queen e2, knight e2. Okay, here's where I would have played king d2 as a kid, maybe, right?
Right, but it's very weird because after knight e7, I don't think queen e2 is the move at all. I think bishop b4 is the move here for white, but he went queen e2 and captured with the king. He's down a pawn here, and I'm not sure at all that he has enough compensation, but d6 is always super annoying because you lock in the bishop on c8.
Oh man, he's threatening checkmate already. He may not have compensation, but he's got a puzzle rush threat.
Well, you want to see a funny line, like after d6. So actually, oh yeah, he captured him on queen f3. Now he's threatening to take on f7 and go rook e8 checkmate. So d5 by Vishy, which has got to be taken by the bishop, I guess. Queen h6.
It's got to bring the pieces out. What about g5? Just forcing a file open while wild operations are ongoing.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. And where do we go now with the king? Maybe he goes back to d1. So once again, queen takes f7 is still in the position. But actually, I kind of like how this has turned out for MVL.
Queen d6 looks okay now, right? Because
queen d6. And what about rook e8?
Because you can block. Rook e8 first here. Oh yeah, rook e8.
He went king c1, rook e8.
What is the defense to rook e8?
That's a good question. Maybe he still had some checks. But MVL plays it slowly with rook e3. But now Vishy has the time to push his b pawn either to b6 or b5 and then develop his bishop.
It's taking a while. Okay, he's preventing it for one move. Queen c5 check.
I don't like queen c5. He could have also considered queen c7 check and bishop b7 because you really got to trade off that bishop on
yeah, because you need to reinforce that b7 square. So queen c5 doesn't actually let him come out. And well, Anand's got a lot of time on the clock.
He goes b4.
Oh, goodness.
This looks on the board. Queen takes f7 is a huge threat now. Wait, how do you defend?
I don't know how you would have defended against this for the last 5 moves. Ever since you mentioned it, I haven't seen the defense for black. Bishop a6, opening up the rank.
You have queen f7, but there's still king h8, and you're barely hanging on because after queen g8, you take, and then you take with the second rook.
Here, if we'd only sacked the g pawn earlier, I would have rook g1.
Right. So let's see how MVL will continue here. There's queen f8, but then you can still take with a queen. It feels like there's a win, but I don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, you could perhaps trade on b8 and take a pawn on d7. I mean, you're pretty well centralized. Oh, wait, something's happening. He's traded queens. Okay. Feels mildly defensible for black. f3 is to be expected. The white bishop has better diagonals than the black one for now.
G5 played. All right, so b4 is weak, but after rook d4, I guess he was playing rook to f4, bishop b5. I guess, okay. He went bishop d3 check and bishop g6. I don't know, but after rook e7, d7 looks tough to defend.
Yeah, it still looks good for white. What would black be planning after rook e7? Maybe rook e8, rook takes d7, rook e2. Maybe that's why he didn't do it.
Oh, rook e5 by MVL, so I guess h6 has got to be played here. Oh, rook d6, king e3, h6 still. Rook king g7, but that's just a free pawn, I would think.
King f6,
But then you have
h4,
f4, and
h6.
you have f4, and then you can go back to the e5
F4
square.
so you can get back out.
Yeah, I think Vishy just blundered here.
Mm-hmm.
So is MVL gonna finish on 4 straight wins? That'd be something.
That would be hilarious. And he might be in a really jolly mood after that. Like the jolliest mood you've seen on somebody with a minus score.
Yeah. Yeah, but unfortunately, he just got going just 1 round too late. Let's say he would have started, pulling it together after round 4. He would finish on 5 out of 9, and he might still get another white game.
Yeah. Yeah. Will Magnus win the Blitz tournament was a 50-50 proposition. And the answer was no, he was not on form today. And the tournament has been taken by Wesley So, as the pawn was taken by Maxime. And suddenly we see that he's won the game with basically no more moves. Anand simply resigned.
It's looking really tough. G5 is coming, followed by F5 and rook e7. But it does look a little early to resign here, I would say, especially in the Blitz game.
Oof. G5 is really strong. I guess you could play H6 and white would play H4 and still just play G5.
Right.
But respectful resignation, and Maxime turns it around. Woo! For all of us who are crying for him, that's great to see. Let's see how Magnus is doing here in his final Blitz game of the day. It is another locked up structure.
So I would think rook c7 here for white, and we'll probably see a bunch of trades. And I guess a draw. So he's taking on rook c8 played. He takes an e5.
More aggressive, going for like bishop c7 to d6 or something like that.
But there's rook d5 and we defend.
Yeah. Rook d5 covers it.
Shakriyar's got to be careful. Here goes rook a8, but Magnus could go
king g7 and he'll be down a pawn, right? He's playing with fire.
So I don't like rook d7 because after f5, nice move, make sure the king can come out.
Yeah.
But what about bishop d4 and b5?
King
now
does
e7
come
is
out.
going to be lost. Should be 6. How do we take with the bishop or the rook? This should be a draw, right? But I mean, if black can, he goes f3, takes g5.
Oh, if b6 gets played, black has bishop c5. That's how black stops the b pawn, folks. I was wondering for a while.
Right.
Oh, now the g pawn. He's got that weakness, and he's going for an outside passer by disconnecting his pawns. White could get ground down, like so many have before.
Magnus missed a big opportunity. He could have gone e5, e4, fixing another pawn on the dark squares. And now this is probably just.
He could have used the tempo on this bishop right after the check, huh?
Indeed, and now Shakriyar is just going to wait on this diagonal. I don't see a single way for Magnus to make progress.
Oh, wow. Okay, king gets f4. Now it's going to be able to come to g5 and trade things off. King and pawn ending looks
drawish. King b6,
drawn.
King f4 takes king g5. Shakriyar could just go king g5 here, but he goes bishop d4 instead.
Yeah, because king g5, waiting. Bishop g3, and then his e pawn's hanging too. So he's in no rush. Yeah. He can just sit here, and they've agreed to a draw. Yeah, I mean, maybe also a little bit uncharacteristic for Magnus to miss an opportunity to grind out this endgame here with e5, e4, boxing white in with with weaknesses on e3 and g3. Normally, you just see Magnus sort of automatically finding all those chances.
Yeah, exactly.
But the last round sees the most draws of any round. Also drawn was Topalov versus Rajabov,
and
with a perpetual check.
Another win. So Tari finished on a very respectable 50% in the Blitz tournament. That must give him a lot of confidence going into the classical. But like I said, he will probably be seeded number 6, which means he starts off with 2 black games.
Yeah. So, wow. I mean, Tari did really well. He falls just half a point short of Anish Giri and Shakriyar Mamedyarov for that 5th spot, but he still outperforms 4 players who are significantly higher rated than him. And, Tari only had under 7 days to prepare for this tournament, right? I mean, Richard Rapport withdrew sometime in the last couple days. So I think it's always tough to hop into a tournament that other people have been preparing for when you haven't.
Exactly, but hopefully he can go into this tournament with a little bit less pressure. But let's have a very quick look at the standings. We see that Wesley So wins the Blitz tournament with 6.5 out of 9. Magnus Carlsen comes in second with 5.5. Then we have Shakhriyar Mamedjarov, Anish Giri, and Vishy Anand all on 5 points. So they are going to get that extra white game. Then Aryan Tari on 50%. MVL winning the last 4 games makes it back to 4 out of 9. And then we have Topalov on 3.5, Rajabov on 3, and Wang Hao on 3 as well. So what I think Wesley So is going to pick number 1, because then he will start off with the white pieces. And then in the second round, he will have the white pieces against Magnus, and he avoids having a black game against Magnus.
All right, so we're going to take a very short break right here, and we'll be back, everybody, with a few more comments. So stick around. The Junior Speed Chess Championship is nearing its final conclusion. They're battling for their share of a $35,000 prize fund and a spot in the 2022 Speed Chess Championship main event. The final match is 1 week from today on June 6th at 8 a.m. Pacific, where the 2 Indian superstars Nihal Sarin and Arjun Erigaisi will battle it out for that final spot. Follow this epic match on chess.com to see who will be crowned the JSCC champion. Nihal Sarin, the top seed, no stranger to the final match. Arjun Erigaisi continues to go up, Benjamin, and I can't wait to see that match myself.
Me neither. Yeah, Arjun has been playing great lately in classical chess. He's improved his rating all the way up to like 2680, I believe. But in this Blitz format, I do have to give the edge to Nihal Sarin. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun regardless.
Yeah, I mean, Arjun was the 7th seed, so he's already outperforming the expectations based on his Blitz and Bullet ratings. But his ratings are going up fast enough that I don't think to me, it's no surprise to see him in the finals. So, I mean, I think like him versus Hans, that was a toss-up, that match. And, it'd be exciting to see if he can give Nihal a scare.
For sure. Yeah. So, there's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, we wrapped up the Blitz tournament today. We will see what seeding number Wesley So is going to pick. I think I predict that he's going to pick number 1, but we'll find out soon enough. But let's talk real quick once again about the format, David.
Yeah. So Norway Chess uses an unusual format, and I saw a comment from their organizer yesterday in a news article where he said that since they instituted this Armageddon format here, the percentage of decisive games went from 15% to 55%, which is dramatic, right? So not only does no game just end in a draw, you always get to see another game, but because you get 3 points for a win, versus I guess 1.5 points for a draw followed by an Armageddon win, there's a strong incentive to get that win even over the draw. So they've had a higher percentage of decisive results in their classical games that they start with.
Yeah, for sure. Winning in classical definitely weighs a lot more. The standings always end up looking a little bit weird because players, have, there will be players on full points and there will be players on, they have half points as well. But yeah, I think we'll see some exciting chess. It's a 10-player round robin. It's great that Ariantari is also getting a chance, and also a lot of players who we haven't seen a lot from lately. Let's have a look at the participants once again.
Yeah. So same participants as we've been watching today. The world champion, Timur Rajabov, a candidate for the world championship. Anand and Topalov, 2 former world champions. And did you have any thoughts going to this tournament who you think the favorites would be to win the classical Norway Chess?
Yeah, so of course Magnus is the favorite. I expect Wesley So to do well as well, and also Anish Giri. I'm very curious to see how Vishy Anand will do. He's been playing great in rapid chess and blitz chess lately, but we haven't seen him play classical in, I think, almost 3 years at this point.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Veselin Topalov's chess, so I'm really excited to see what he brings. But obviously, for most people, I think Anand's going to be more exciting because he already had this great result at Superbet. He was at the top of this Blitz tournament throughout the day, competing for the top spot. So he's already earned some extra buzz, right? Where people can have some more high expectations for him. Whereas Topalov, it's just a question mark that I'm very interested to see.
For sure. Yeah, let's have a very quick look at the schedule. So as you guys can see, today we had the Blitz event, and tomorrow the classical is going to begin. We have rounds 1 through 4th coming up. Then there will be a rest day, but then we'll follow it up by rounds 5 through 8. Then there will be rounds through 7, and then there will be a rest day before rounds 8 through 9. The rounds are going to be at 5 p.m. In Norway, which is 8 p.m. Pacific. What do you make of that time, David? It's a little bit late on the day.
Yeah, they are playing a little bit late, and they will be playing their classical games an hour earlier than they played Blitz today. So anybody who was watching the show from the start today, be sure to get up an hour earlier tomorrow for this. But yeah, I guess 3 p.m. is sort of the typical time for a professional tournament of this caliber to allow a calm digestion of your lunch before you go and play. And 5 p.m. with an Armageddon game, I mean, you can imagine that games are going to be played at 10:30, 11 at night. Maybe some of these Armageddon games will be going. So depending on the players' sleep patterns and habits, and some of them being older players, maybe there will be a fatigue factor at the end of the night that we will have to watch out for.
Yeah, I personally always found it tough when rounds would start at 5, because if you play at 3, you have your breakfast and then lunch and then you play. But with 5, there's just so much time before the round, right? So I'm very curious to see how they will all deal with that in the rhythm. And yeah, the rounds can go pretty late. Maybe they'll be playing all the way till midnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that, see how that all plays out. I mean, it's hard to perfectly please chess players with the schedule, right? Because if you have a game at like 10 or 11, they're like, oh, it's too early, I'm still sleeping or something. And if you go into the evening, then some people will say it's late. We'll see how it goes. But before we leave you, I just want to remind everybody that there is a ChessCom Clips channel at youtube.com/ChessComClips, where we put up some of the best little clips from chess.com broadcasts and shows. So give that a follow, or sub as it's called on YouTube. And we look forward to seeing you throughout the next week and a half to watch these epic games that we can expect from these players.
Yeah, so we are going to sign off. Thanks, David, for being such a great co-host today. Also, thanks to Hela for being a great producer. We had some technical difficulties, but we're all going to blame that on Danny Ranch. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing a lot of exciting chess starting tomorrow.